BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
I think they'll miss Gabe Davis. I think he's the kind of guy over 4 years that maybe he wasn't super consistent, but he was dependable. He had some big games in big spots.
Mike Danger.
We take the good with the bad.
Gene Battaglia.
Danger, I think the question is, what's next here for the Buffalo Bills?
The Patrick Mahomes rules. You got to knock off the head of the snake.
Kill the head, the body will die. Affect the head. Affect the head. Continue. Touch and hit the head.
Amerks Belleville. Tonight at 7.
Violence.
Yes.
Canadians and Sabres clash tonight.
The Dads and Mentors trip really just refresh energy.
How can you not be proud of these guys? That in itself can be energizing.
The 5+7 CFP format approved yesterday only applies to the next 2 seasons. Then things could change again.
Syracuse, number 1 UConn was riding a 14-game winning streak. Well, now it's over. The Creighton Blue Jays got it done convincingly.
How about my dude Dan Hurley, a Creighton fan, nearly hooked my guy.
And it's opening night for MLS as Messi and Inter Miami host Real Salt Lake.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Hey, good afternoon. Pull up a stool and join us. We welcome you on in to the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're listening along locally. The 95.7 FM, AM 950. The free to download Odyssey app. That's AUDACY. And we've also got the stream up for you. You can watch us on YouTube, our channel, The Fan Rochester. Also, Twitch. At the Fan Rochester. I'm Danger, that's Battaglia.
It's funny, I had no idea Major League Soccer opened tonight. I'm not that I'm a hater or anything, but I draw it back to when we were talking about getting an expansion team. Can you just imagine, hey, it's opening night, everybody come on out here in Rochester in February.
Oh, if we had an MLS team you're talking about, and they were playing it at the stadium downtown where we wanted that expansion team. Can you imagine that? What would the attendance be on February 21st in downtown Rochester for an MLS team? Would people go? Hardcores would go. Hardcores would. Today's not a bad day.
Today you're going around sunny, but guess what? At 7, 8 o'clock tonight, I don't know if I'd be wanting to sit out anywhere.
That might be a little bit of a tougher putt. I actually have a soccer take I was going to share later on this hour.
I see this. I like this.
There is something going on in the world of soccer that we locally here can kind of relate to. It's not good. Soccer, much like hockey, baseball, just can't really get out of their own way when it comes to efforts in growing the game. Can't really do it.
They think they do, but they don't. Say, for instance, baseball. Baseball has this, the World Baseball Classic was a good thing, but you can't hang your hat on that and that alone in terms of growing the game. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you want to grow the game, you have to seize opportunities as they exist. You have to reach out and go places you might not want to go. And, well, I'll save it for later, but soccer, Major League Soccer, is really, really thwarting that effort to grow the game here domestically. We'll get into that later on this hour. We've got a great show lined up for you this afternoon. We'll be talking to a future Hall of Famer in the 4 o'clock hour. And we've got Amerks hockey tonight, Friday night, a special night at Blue Cross Arena.
Yeah, Roy Fitzpatrick going to the Amerks Hall of Fame. So what you like about Rory, not only played for the Amerks, from Rochester, stayed in Rochester, serving his community in Rochester. So we'll talk to Rory Fitzpatrick about his Amerks days and what that's going to be like Friday when he gets his number and goes, not number retired, but he goes into the Amerks Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have that conversation coming up this afternoon right around 4:25. And back after a couple-week hiatus, last time we spoke to PJ, we were talking about the Super Bowl. PJ Glasser is the host of BetQL's Send It In, and he's your Odyssey Sports betting insider, stopping by the Sports Bar later this hour, about 20 minutes from now.
Now, not to spoil it, but he's got a team right now that he says, wait a second, the value is here on the over-under. For baseball futures is going to be the topic here today because, yeah, can you really get value in betting the Dodgers? Probably not. But there's one team that PJ identifies in the National League that should hit the over easily. No, it's not the New York Mets.
I thought that's exactly where you were going.
remember, I keep telling you and Carolina,
Is
anybody else
is this
who
a new
listen,
you? This is a new you.
I am improved. I am not going to be, getting carried away. And like you have this whole catalog of me calling Carolina Mr. Mouth.
Hanging up on our guests because they're fans of teams that are not named the New York Mets.
I am just going to stay down, be humble, and watch my team this year.
Good. All right, I look forward to that. So that's not the team we were going to ask PJ about.
No, it's not.
PJ is going to share some value here in the futures market for Major League Baseball. We'll have that with PJ Glasser, the host of BetQ. I'll send it in coming up here at about 3:25. And Insider Calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. You can join us anytime in the sports bar by calling 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326. We're also on Elon's Twitter. That's X, at The Fan Rochester. Love engaging with you on that platform as well. Gino, today, after we had a conversation yesterday, I kind of did a scan around, the sports talk landscape. And I'm not talking about the national platforms as much as I was checking in on the local markets. Now, at some point this offseason, we're going to talk to one of our guys from Chicago. We have to find out what they're thinking, what's going on, what the inside track is with that first overall pick.
Yeah, and I think with that first overall pick, one thing we didn't anticipate, but we're telling you right now, the decision for Fields has to happen quickly here because teams are going to go in other directions, and all of a sudden the market for Justin Fields may not be what you think it is. That is if we believe that the Bears are actually going to move off. Do we believe that the Bears are going to move off from Justin?
I think they're going to listen to everything that's out there and do what they believe. Here's what I can tell you. They'll find a way to screw it up. That's what I can tell you. But, I know we'll kind of, I was listening to what's going on in Philadelphia today. What are they talking about today? One of our buddies, Joe Giglio, who used to frequent the sports bar, was talking about how they may have overrated Jalen Hurts after last year's Super Bowl run. That Jalen Hurts at one point was viewed as a top 5 or a top 3 quarterback, and now you can't say the same thing about Jalen Hurts. And
that's insular Philadelphia, by the way. I don't think anybody was calling Jalen Hurts top 3.
Well, when he got them to the Super Bowl, you could argue top 5. You could argue top 5.
Yeah,
he had a great season.
And so now all of a sudden he's out of the top 5 because the team fell apart around him. I mean,
right. He didn't play. Let's face it, Jalen Hurts did not have a great season last year, and things kind of fell apart as the season wore on. And so hearing things like that just kind of make you sit back and relax if you're a Bills fan, thinking to yourself, at worst, Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. At worst, you could argue he's top 3. I would listen to people who want to believe he's the best, but I'm not willing to put him there. At worst, let's just all say top 5. At worst.
I think he's top 3. That you could say nobody is saying he's better than Mahomes. Certainly, I'm not going to take you can make any statistical
Some people
argument.
will say that he's better than Mahomes.
I listen, okay, that's fine. I still put Burrow ahead of him. But for Joe Burrow, being on the field is also part of the equation.
Well,
and for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, he stayed on the field at this point.
Well, it's with that in mind that I just think we kind of breathe a sigh of relief that we're not in this cycle that for years and years and years we were in trying to figure out just who is going to lead this team. We have our guy, and at minimum, we can rest easy knowing that 17 is behind center for the foreseeable future.
You have to find that guy. And because the Bills have that guy, they are the favorites for the AFC East here in 2024. And these other teams that we're going to talk about here. And what's interesting is that you look at the top of the draft here, Danger. Chicago, yeah, they could draft a quarterback. Washington, yeah, they could draft a quarterback. New England, yeah, they could draft a quarterback.
New England's exciting. New England is actually a very interesting pick because where they sit at 3, if they stay there, they can go quarterback or they can also go stud wide receiver, like can't miss wide receiver.
Which they never really had since Randy Moss, right?
Right. So that's an interesting pick. And I know we're going to talk tomorrow to Mark Schofield a little bit more about what New England might do there at number 3. That's tomorrow afternoon at 3:25. But yesterday I brought up, I'm planting my flag. Like, this is what I think could happen, just out of logic, not out of cap figures or dead cap money or what this move means or what that move means. I mean, we all kind of assume we can assume that Justin Fields won't be a Chicago Bear next year. I mean, he stopped following on Instagram. That's like, please, that's like the number one reason why. But we can assume that Russell Wilson has played his final down in Denver, right? We can assume that at some point Pittsburgh will bring in veteran competition to go against Kenny Pickett. What is Atlanta going to do at quarterback? It feels like they're not going to rest on Desmond Ridder moving forward. So there's a lot of teams that are in it. Tampa and Baker Mayfield. These are all interesting kind of dominoes that are going to fall.
Right. So Atlanta picking at 8, I'm sure they're thinking, okay, the quarterback we like, can we get him at 8 or can we move up a slot or two? And remember, the Bills picked Josh Allen where they traded up to 7, so 8 isn't out of the realm. And I'm looking at a team that really I think is right on the edge. Well, 2 teams actually right on the edge. Minnesota at 11, Denver at 12, where I think they would have to kind of move up with all these other quarterback needy teams if they want to make sure. Or do they take the other route, meaning, you know what, let's bring in a Russell Wilson if you're Minnesota. Let's bring in Denver, a Kirk Cousins. Like, what would that look like? And it just got me thinking here, Danger. It's rare, but it's happened before. And I think the last time this happened in the NFL, Matthew Stafford. I don't think anybody had Matthew Stafford being a top 5 quarterback when he was in Detroit. In fact, he was kind of viewed as, hey, he's a guy, but who really knows?
Statistically, he was fantastic in Detroit. I mean, if you looked at his numbers, statistically, he was great. I mean, he left that organization as like the leader in passing, right? Like he's historic. He was he wasn't the reason why they kept losing every season.
Right. So, but it wasn't this big celebrated move in Los Angeles that, hey, we're going to be a Super Bowl champion. But then you realize, wait a second, they have one of the best offensive minds in the game in Sean McVay. They have Aaron Donald on the other side. They have an ownership and a GM that says, screw those picks. Let's bring in talent everywhere, including Von Miller.
Great offensive line. I mean, they won in the trenches.
Right. So when you kind of factor in everything else around it, okay, now you understand. If we could just get a guy. So that brings me back to, all right, could a Russell Wilson win again? Could a Kirk Cousins win? But you'd have to have that situation kind of lined up. I look at Atlanta at 8, and I think, all right, I believe Atlanta would want to draft a quarterback, but will Arthur Blank say, you know what? I'm done waiting. Let's go get a Russell Wilson. Would that be a team, Danger, that could all of a sudden, in a weak division and with talent on offense, all of a sudden kind of have that ramp up?
Or are we limiting our scope when we say that, only teams like New England and Washington should be willing to trade up to number 1? I guarantee you, if the phone rings in Chicago and it's Atlanta looking to make a move up to 1, that the Bears would gladly give up the first overall pick for a haul of picks if Atlanta was the team. Any team really can do that. I mean, like, that's why the Bears hold so much in their hand as far as how this draft plays out and how next season looks. The whole thing that got me thinking about the quarterback carousel here and all the dominoes that could fall was the report out of Minnesota that the Vikings are not going to give Cousins any sort of guarantees. Like, Cousins only knows guaranteed money. It's what got him to Minnesota as a free agent. It's what he's had his entire time there. And nobody will say it, but we know that in the NFL, these owners, they're a secret society. They're going to do business the way they want to do business. And when somebody steps out of line, nobody will come out and publicly shame the Browns for doing what they did in the ownership circle. But every owner in the NFL hated what the Haslams did when they offered Deshaun Watson all of that guaranteed money and basically reset the market. Now you've got every team or every quarterback thinking, he's got it. Why can't I? I'm Lamar Jackson. I won an MVP. Where's my guaranteed money?
I thought Lamar, when he dug in last year, and I was all in favor of it. Hey, if that other guy in my own division got that, I'm better than him. Give me the guaranteed dollars. And then you realize, well, it would help. Look, on the one hand, I respect, hey, I want to save a little bit of money, not hire an agent. But you know what? It's actually, I think, good business to hire an agent. Let them do this work for you, because obviously you didn't get what you want in terms of the guaranteed dollars. You went back to Baltimore, and you actually had to I'm sure it's not what you wanted.
And put a pin in that thought for a second, because today we got word that Caleb Williams is going to enter the draft without an agent.
Wow.
Which is a mistake. I think is a mistake. I mean, everything that Lamar Jackson had to hear going into the 2019 draft when he was selected by Baltimore, was it 2019, 2018? Did I get that wrong? 2018, sorry. Was that he's not a quarterback, he should be a wide receiver, and he didn't have anybody fighting his fight for him. He didn't have an agent saying, that's ridiculous, look at my guy throw nobody propping him up, and that's why he went as late as he went in the first round.
Yeah, Bill Polian, respected GM coming out.
And he should be a wide receiver. He
should be a wide receiver. And all right, what storylines can you come up with Caleb Williams? I'm not going to say you should be a wide receiver, but
look at those interceptions last year, man. Lots of turnovers. Just a turnover machine.
Look at him crying in his mother's arms.
Way too emotional. The moment is too big for him.
Wait a second. You lost to UCLA and you stormed away and you didn't talk to reporters.
If I'm Drake May's agent, that's all I'm talking about is Caleb Williams' deficiencies, right? You don't have an agent to fight it, so I'm just going to attack. And maybe, just maybe, my client gets more when late April hits.
Well, and if you think that stuff doesn't go on, the change being here, whatever that test is, the aptitude test.
The Wonderlic.
Yeah, well, no, not the Wonderlic, the other one. The one they designed for quarterbacks, C.J. Stroud bombing on that test. And now Athletes First is saying, we're not going to have any client do that. Well, okay, fine, but who was the one that leaked the info about C.J. Stroud? And did that force C.J. Stroud not to be the number one overall pick? Was it Carolina trying to just make sure they were saving face and emboldening their own selection? Was it Houston actually hoping that he would fall to number two? We don't know.
It's just a game of manipulation and chess and smoke and mirrors. It's the season of lying. And okay, so back to your thought about Atlanta and Russ and where these dominoes kind of fall. Because I said that, if Russ has played his last down in Denver, I could see it being Russ, ending, Russ has played his last down in the NFL, Russ just retires. Or maybe a team like Tampa, if they're not able to get Baker Mayfield. If you see how in my head, I'm thinking to myself, all right, Cousins doesn't stay in Minnesota. If I'm Minnesota, I'm excited. I can sell my fan base on bringing in Baker Mayfield. He has more playoff wins, double the playoff wins too, than Kirk Cousins had during his entire time in Minnesota. The team that's interesting to me is Pittsburgh, because everybody wants to put Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh, and I don't think that that's a Pittsburgh kind of move. To me, if you're asking me today, Kenny Pickett is a first round pick, and he is your starter week one for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They'll bring in veteran competition, and I already know who it is. And we should know if his.
You know who it is.
I feel like I know who it is.
All right.
I think Ryan Tannehill gets brought into Pittsburgh to compete for the starting job with Kenny Pickett. Arthur Smith is the new offensive coordinator. Those two made beautiful music together when they were in Tennessee. Why not? It's rigged. He's not going to win. Kenny Pickett, by comparison, will look like a better quarterback to Ryan Tannehill. But the Steelers aren't going to admit that they whiffed on a first-round quarterback. Are you kidding me?
Well, the Niners did.
Different
organization like the Niners. Think of what they did. And they, like the Steelers, okay, first-round pick, number 20 overall. That was the number 3 overall pick. And they used all this collateral to move up and get.
This is the difference between an immature and overly emotional run team and a stoic, patient, historically, what's the word I'm looking for with the Steelers? They're just consistent, historically consistent. And so they're not going to let the emotion of the moment. They're not going to fire their defensive coordinator after getting to the Super Bowl, 2 days after getting to the Super Bowl. That's not the Steeler way. They'll let cooler heads prevail. And I think it's one of the reasons why Tomlin is great at working with crazy people. I mean, Antonio Brown wasn't a problem until he was a problem. And at one point, Mike Tomlin was like, I can't control him anymore. Get him out of here. And that was it. That was the end. But they tried. Remember how hard they tried to make it work with Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh? They tried everything. He met with the owners. again, these are un-Steeler-like things that were happening back then. So that's why I think they're not going to invite chaos into the organization, which is what a guy like Russell Wilson could bring.
I don't think Russell Wilson last year, I think he actually stayed down in Denver. Like the stuff from Denver, the let's ride, the high knees, that was all under Hackett. And under the stern leadership of Sean Payton, not as much. The Broncos won some games, including over Buffalo, they shouldn't have won. So, to me, I think you could do a lot worse than Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. And actually, you haven't had anything comparable. I'm telling you, Danger, Kenny Pickett ain't it. He's not it. Like what you are wasting time.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
And you're talking about an emotional pick. You know what that was? That was everybody in that town saying, we made this mistake back in 1983 by not taking Dan Marino. We can't make the same mistake. Well, this wasn't Dan Marino. I'm sorry.
I just don't think they go back on. I think the thing that NFL GMs and teams hate doing more than anything is admitting a mistake. And it might be a mistake. I don't disagree with you. I don't know that Kenny Pickett is it. He sure doesn't look like it at this point in his career, but I don't think that they're going to admit that they were wrong in selecting him. I think they're going to do everything they can to extract greatness out of that kid and get him out on the field week one as their starter and the face of their franchise. That's what I think. So, to bring in a veteran to compete, I'm not thinking it's a level of Russell Wilson. I think it's more a level of, Ryan Tannehill's out there. Let's get Ryan Tannehill to come in and compete. And if Ryan Tannehill and Arthur Smith, can at minimum, Tannehill can act as a mentor to Kenny Pickett in explaining the Arthur Smith offense and how it all works because he has such experience with it. That feels logical to me. That feels like a move the Steelers would make.
To me, I feel like if the Steelers had just the slightest upgrade at quarterback, whether that's Cousins or Wilson or wherever, they can compete with Baltimore for the division.
They can compete with Baltimore for the division right now. They competed with Baltimore for the division last year. They beat Baltimore last year.
They weren't close. They were kind of an afterthought. Nobody was picking them.
They beat Baltimore last year.
I get that.
They're always going to compete with Baltimore. It doesn't matter who their quarterback is.
They weren't anywhere close. They were eliminated by what I'm saying compete for the division. By mid-December, they were out of the race for the division.
No, I mean, they're a playoff team. Nobody believed me when I said they were going to be a playoff team. Everybody thought it was crazy. But that's just one of the dominoes, right? And then where does Russell Wilson end up? Like, hey, if Baker Mayfield doesn't get franchise tagged in Tampa, which doesn't look like he will be, and they can't bring him back, does Russell Wilson end up in Tampa? Does he follow the footsteps of Tom Brady? I mean, you could sell Buccaneer fan on the idea of Mr. Unlimited now is your quarterback, just like you did when you brought Brady down there, a guy that's won rings, a former champion. I mean, I wouldn't be excited about it, but I could understand the logic behind it if it's at the right price. Nobody's going to touch him at his current rate. He's going to have to get released, and you're going to have to renegotiate all that stuff. And the same goes for Cousins. Does Cousins end up in Denver? The whole carousel is going to be interesting.
I'm just hoping New England takes a veteran quarterback. So
no, Jacoby Brissett.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett will be starting for New England week one. That'll be their solution. Well, we'll find out more about New England tomorrow when we get to Schofield, and I'll throw that option by him and see if that's something that might end up happening. PJ Glasser is the host of BetQL's Send It In. You can hear it in the Odyssey app. You can watch it on YouTube and Twitch at BetQL's channel. And he joins us next to give us his picks as the NBA season gets back underway tomorrow night. We'll talk some college basketball, and we'll get into some baseball futures as well. With PJ Glasser next. Your calls always welcome. 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
You're listening. Sports Update.
Amherst right back at it tonight, hosting Belleville. It's the first of two against the Sens this week. It will be Devin Levi in goal tonight. Levi coming off the 52-save performance in Toronto on Monday. Amherst head coach Seth Appert giving us an update on the status of Yuri Kulik.
Kulik is fine. He'll likely play this weekend. He's 19 years old. We're going to be extra cautious bringing a player back from an injury. That's as big of a prospect as he is at the age he's at, right? So, but he's fine. He feels great, and I think he probably feels like he can play, but like I said, likely for the weekend.
Appert joining us every Tuesday here in the Sports Bar. Rory Fitzpatrick going to the Amherst Hall of Fame. We'll talk to him coming up next hour in the Sports Bar. Sabres in Montreal tonight. That game can be heard on 96.5 WCMF. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Feels good to welcome back in the host of Send It In and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, PJ Glasser. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. You can go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. And PJ, it's nice that we have you on today as the NBA gears up for their post All-Star break stretch. We're kind of excited here, even though they lost their last four going into the break, about the Knicks, because a lot of people are talking about the Knicks and the Knicks making this they're fun again, and maybe they can represent the East in the NBA Finals. And there's one guy that I know that they're going to be getting back here. Oh man, it's going to drive me nuts here if I can't remember his name, PJ. Maybe you can help me out.
Wait a second. Villanova?
You remember him from Villanova, right? Italian kid, I think. Dante something. PJ, you know who we're talking about here?
Dante DiVincenzo.
That's the guy. That's the guy.
He's a good one.
Yeah.
You know, I got to tell you guys, too, there's a guy on Twitter, Chris, who I think is a listener of the show. He was telling me that if I threw it, you guys count Hesco. You know that one, too.
No.
You know that one, too.
When our regulars are reaching out and you're obliging with requests, I mean, that just says the kind of character you are, PJ. That's why we love you.
Oh, my gosh.
I love it.
PJ, before we get into some plays, dude, how was Vegas? Give us the whole experience. What is Vegas? What was it like during Super Bowl week?
Oh, guys, it was awesome. The whole week. I think a majority of people, honestly, out of that week, guys, came away with, if the Super Bowl just wants to be in Vegas every year, I think people are good with it, right? It's a great destination for fans, obviously, to watch their teams try and compete for a championship. It's a city that can hold that kind of event with all the hotels, all the media, all the people that want to come in for the weekend, plus just all the celebrities that it brings in, and it's a great place for the NFL honors and everything. So it was a great time. It was just awesome to see everybody out there, all the different players and coaches and former players and coaches, and obviously different fan bases from different teams. It was a great time. The week went by fast, guys. You know, it was one of those where the days were kind of going by slow. It was long days, but then you look up and it's already Thursday, Friday, and you're getting ready for the game. So it's crazy that football's already gone, guys. But as you know, we're getting closer and closer to March and March Madness. So can't wait for that.
Can I ask you a question? Because my takeaway from Super Bowl Sunday in terms of the betting angle of it is just how accurate Vegas knows. Like, I just feel like the Super Bowl being the thing that everybody has action on, when you look at that and you see the results and you see where they had everything set right before kickoff, they just know, like, their models are so good. Like, give me hope, PJ, that you know, we talk and we, you know, we see things and we look for numbers and trends and we follow everything that's going on, because man, after seeing that, and I did well on Super Bowl Sunday. I'm sure you did well on Super Bowl Sunday, but I didn't do well by much. There was nothing there that felt like it was easy. Everything was a sweat because everything was so spot on with those lines.
It's true. Guys, the total for, like, I want to say 10 days was at 47.5. And then on Saturday, it dips down to 46.5. The game, of course, 25-22, 47 points. So, Danger, to your point, it's like, obviously the market for the Super Bowl is going to be as sharp as it possibly could. The teams up to that point have played 19, 20 games. You got all the data that you could need. And for them to still be that spot on with it is just, it's pretty incredible. And then for the game, guys, my biggest takeaway too, I think if you like San Francisco, you got to feel good about your bet, right? You went into the game thinking they were favored. They were the better team. They had their chances in the first half. And then if you like the Chiefs, it's because of Mahomes and Andy Reid, and Kansas City just kept hanging around. And you knew at the end when San Francisco settled for that field goal and Mahomes got the ball last, we kind of all know how that was going to go. So, but to your point, Danger, it is incredible. All the odds makers and how they set these lines and how often it really comes right down to the number.
We're talking to PJ Glasser, your host of Send It In on the BetQL Network. And PJ, now we're into the season where I think this is your wheelhouse, my friend, college basketball. And I can tell you yesterday on Send It In, you nailed it. You said Creighton was going to knock off UConn. They did. So first of all, your thoughts here on UConn. I mean, that's nothing to be embarrassed about. That's Creighton. That's a conference opponent. That's a ranked opponent they lost to. But are there any plays tonight, tomorrow, you're looking at college basketball that can help us out here?
Yeah, real quick, Gene, I'll touch on UConn. I mean, you can just kind of see that coming, right? That was the handicap last night. That's why I liked Creighton. You play the number 4 team in the country in Marquette. You beat them by nearly 30 points. And everybody was ready to crown them national champions. And then they go on the road. Guys, there was a crazy stat floating around that UConn has lost their last 21 road games against ranked opponents. I can't believe that's the real thing, but they've now lost 21 straight. They get Marquette at the end of the year, so that might be something to keep in the back pocket when they go on the road to Milwaukee. But they'll be fine. I think, if anything, this was good for them, right? You have that great win against Marquette. You feel good about yourself. And then this loss to Creighton kind of humbles you, and they'll get back to it. But they are still far and away the team to beat in the country. As for tonight, guys, my favorite play is going to be Indiana on the money line against Nebraska. It was a pick'em at -110. It's now gone up to -135. Nebraska is 0-7 on the road in Big Ten play. Indiana has been terrible this season. They're normally really good at home in Assembly Hall. For whatever reason, it's just one of those years where they're not very good. With all that being said, they should not be a pick'em -1 against Nebraska, who has not won a game in conference play on the road. So I do like the Hoosiers tonight. And then 2 spots I would keep an eye on that I just think are interesting games to monitor. St. John's is in action tonight. It's their first game since Rick Pitino made those comments about his team. How do they respond on the road against Georgetown? Is this going to be one of those games where Pitino is trying to get through to his team through the media, kind of like what Saban would do a bunch, where he kind of uses the media and kind of spins their words in a way to motivate his team? Or does this team just completely quit on him and say, you know what, we don't want to play for this guy anymore? So they're 10.5-point favorites against Georgetown. I think that's a really interesting game. And then also South Florida is on the road tonight against UTSA. South Florida had a huge win, guys, over the weekend on Sunday against FAU. This is just another one of those classic letdown spots, right? 5.5-point favorites on the road against a UTSA team that they should beat by double digits, but are they going to be a little sleepwalking heading into San Antonio tonight? So I think those games are interesting. But my best bet's going to be Indiana tonight at home.
It's funny, PJ. You can look at the schedule in college basketball, and you can kind of find these lines that look or smell a little fishy. And another one that I kind of saw was this New Mexico-Colorado State matchup. Colorado State is the ranked team, yet it's New Mexico that's favored by 6.5, and I think that line is actually moving closer to 7.5 for the Lobos, and that's a New Mexico team that has the same conference record as Colorado State, yet they're unranked. A New Mexico team that'll be at home and looking to bounce back against San Diego State. Any interest in that game out west later on tonight?
Not at the 7.5, Danger. It opened up at 5.5, and I liked it there, but at 7.5, I'm going to stay away. New Mexico is just one of those teams that they are just ridiculous at home. Like, they're not going to lose tonight. I don't know if they cover the 7.5. I think they're a great piece. They've been great this season on the road and on the neutral floor. So I do like them tonight to win. Don't love them as much on the 7.5. But as we get closer and closer to the tournament, certainly a team to monitor with the Lobos. If you haven't watched them yet, I would certainly recommend doing so, because again, they're going to be one of those teams, maybe like a 7, 8, 9 seed that could bust some brackets come March.
Yeah, we are talking to PJ Glasser as the NBA tomorrow night. But PJ, also tomorrow we get the PGA Tour, of course, as we do every week. You love golf. You love picking golf. Not the best field, maybe here for the Mexico Open. Tony Finau, I'm looking at odds of 13-2. Are there any plays, any advantages as well? I'm sure up here in the Northeast, we're going to be looking at nice warm pictures here of Mexico this time of year.
Yeah, no question. Guys, this event, so they've only played here. This is only the third time they're going to play here. So we really only have 2 years of course history and data to kind of go off of. Really the clear thing when we come to this course in Vedanta for the Mexico Open is that it favors the long hitters, right? We've talked about on this show before. Like, there are certain courses where it's a big advantage to be accurate and it's a big advantage to be long off the tee. Certainly one of those weeks where you're going to want distance over accuracy. So, we have guys this week that have performed well here over the last couple of years that are usually like non-factors in other tournaments. Cameron Champ is a guy this week who's 55-1. The last 2 years at this course, he's finished in the top 10. So you can get some great prices on him, top 20, top 10. He's played in 4 events this year, and he's missed 4 cuts. So that's why the price is so high on him coming into this week at a course that he's played pretty well at. So maybe a good option there. I like Taylor Pendrith at 25-1. Couple of top 10 finishes for Pendrith this year. Another guy that can just absolutely hit bombs off the tee. So that's really the kind of golfer you're looking for this week. It's going to be a birdie fest. It's a course that the fairways are really wide. It's like the 6 widest fairways on tour. You're playing in Mexico, so the elevation's a factor, which obviously helps these longer hitters even more so off the tee. So that'd be my advice to people. Just bet some of the longer hitters. Pendrith would be a guy that I would look at. Cameron Champ, I like the price on as well. And then Keith Mitchell would be another guy that I like this week at the Mexico Open, too.
PJ, the NBA returns tomorrow night. We got a nice slate of games. We got those Knicks taking on the Sixers in Philadelphia. Any other matchups tomorrow night that we can get a jump on now as we look ahead to the post-All-Star break season here for the NBA?
Oh, guys, there is one game I got circled. I've been waiting for it. Give me the Nets tomorrow, plus 2.5, and on the money line against the Raptors. I got a rule. Whenever a team fires a head coach, you back them that next game. We saw with Ohio State against Purdue on Sunday. Doesn't matter the sport. It's very profitable. It's been very good to me, and I'm going to keep riding it. So the Nets obviously got rid of Jacque Vaughn over All-Star Weekend, and now this is going to be their first game on the road against the Raptors. They're dogs. Absolutely love the Nets tomorrow.
It blows my mind, PJ, that this time tomorrow in our studio on a monitor we'll have spring training. We'll have the Dodgers and Padres opening it up for real, and then everybody else later this weekend. But when we look to the real thing here, PJ, in terms of futures, I know there's one team you got your eye on. Is there any value here in laying some money right now here on win totals?
Yeah, win totals. The NL Central is an interesting division to me this year because the Cardinals are favored. And, the Cardinals have been such a model of consistency. They're such a good franchise, and I think everybody just expects them to kind of bounce back from the season they had last year. Arenado's back, Goldschmidt's back. They got some prospects coming up. They made some adjustments to their pitching staff. I just don't know. The Cubs lost Marcus Stroman to the Yankees. They might not re-sign Bellinger. Craig Counsell comes over in his first year as a new manager. That might take a little bit to get going as well. I think it creates some value on the Reds and on the Pirates as well. So a couple of teams there in the NL Central who I would look at not only their odds to win their division, but certainly their win total as well. The Pirates, I believe, are at 74.5. The Reds are at 84.5. I think both of those teams could surprise. Remember, the Pirates got off to a red-hot start last year. Then O'Neal Cruz got hurt. They kind of fell off. And then when Ellie De La Cruz came up for the Reds last season, they caught fire there for like a month of the season. So I think the Reds could be a team to watch, and then the Pirates I kind of like as well in the NL Central.
PJ, let our audience know more about Send It In. We love the format. It's quick, it's fast-paced, it's interactive. Let us know where we can get more of your work.
Yeah, guys, 1 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Mondays through Fridays. You can check out Send It In on the BetQL Network. You can check it out on Twitch, YouTube, Odyssey app. Like you guys said, it's fast-paced, no commercials, 30 straight minutes, and we just go through every different sport kind of like this. We talk some baseball, NBA, college hoops, golf, and it's interactive. So we love when people listen in, send in some comments, and interact with the show. It's a great time, and hopefully people can tune in 1 o'clock Eastern, Mondays through Fridays.
I think you're selling the Cardinals way too short. After all, that third baseman.
You just mentioned him.
Nolan Arenado.
That's the guy.
That's the guy.
Be careful
Guys,
what you wish for, by the way, because Chris, one of our regulars who reached out to you with Count Hetzko, he'll just send you, throughout the course of Send It In, he'll just send you requests. Watch out.
I'm sure he will. I look forward to that. Guys, I think as we get closer to March, we're going to have to create a starting 5 Baltimore accent March Madness team, right?
So
we got DiVincenzo. I mean, I was thinking of you guys today as I was getting ready for my hit. Certainly there's a legend there in Syracuse, last name Anthony. He obviously is going to be in the starting 5. So I think we can have some fun with this over the next couple of weeks.
We need to come up with 64 all-timers, and we'll create a bracket of just the Baltimore accent bracket, and it all sports, all time. I'm sure we'll miss some will be left out. It'll be just like the tournament. There'll be some that'll just like, I can't believe we didn't make the tournament. But then you got a guy like Carmelo. Yeah, he's in there as a 5 seed. He's ready to advance. That'll be fun, PJ. We're going to do that.
Can't wait. You guys are the best. Good talking to you.
Appreciate you. PJ Glasser is the host of BetQL's Send It In. You can hear it in the Odyssey app. You can check it out on YouTube and Twitch on BetQL's channel. Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app.
Now we're going to be paying attention to the Nets tonight. He's right, though. Teams do... why are the Nets getting 2.5 against the Raptors tonight?
Yeah. The Ohio State win was a big one over Purdue, right? That another one. And PJ has said that on this show multiple times. Like, he will always back the team who just went through a coaching change. Usually it's worked out in his favor, and you certainly saw it happen over the course of the weekend when Purdue fell to Ohio State. Maybe we'll see the Raptors fall at the hands of the Nets, as PJ predicted, when the NBA gets back underway with their schedule tomorrow. Great stuff from PJ, as always.
This is going to make you feel older, really old. Makes me feel old. Charlie Woods is competing in a pre-qualifier event. He's now 15.
Whew.
Like, wait a second, that can't be right.
He's going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem, this one. Watch out. 15. I mean, him being 15 doesn't make me feel old. I'm actually kind of excited for what the world looks like when Charlie Woods takes over the world of golf.
It's Charlie Woods. We're going to get to a point where he wins the Masters, right?
Has to.
Yeah.
Has to. I mean, do you think Tiger is going to take his foot off the gas? Did Earl ever take his foot off the gas? Never. If Tiger's got that in his makeup, and Charlie now has that in his, like, the focus, the attention to detail, the work ethic. Let's hope that the decision making off the course is maybe a little bit better with Charlie Woods. Maybe he has a little bit of his mother's calming demeanor. I don't know. The calming demeanor that likes to throw golf clubs at Escalades. I can't wait, man. That's exciting. Does it make you feel old? I guess it probably does make you feel a little old. But, man, I can't wait. That's exciting stuff.
Well, they were talking on Maggie and Perloff this morning, best father-son duos, and it was the Slater thing that brought it up. Like, oh, you forget Matthew Slater was the son of Jackie Slater.
Yeah.
And people are talking about Matthew Slater as a Hall of Famer. And
get out of here.
Look, Steve Tasker goes in ahead of Matthew Slater.
Yes, get out of here.
Yeah, it's a recency bias.
Get out of here with that. That's a good question, though. Who did they have? I mean, the one that comes to mind for me immediately is Griffey.
Yeah, and they were talking about Bronny, but to me, if Charlie, the promise of Charlie is going to be what we're all pulling for.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of know what to expect. I think we already know what to expect because chances are you've seen the side-by-side of those two, right? You watch the two of them when they swing, it's identical. They are it is his clone. It's his mini me. And if he performs at the level, even close to the level that Tiger did at that age, look out, world, because he will take it over. I can't wait. I can't wait to see it. That's exciting news. Bronny. Do we know? I mean, glad Bronny's okay.
Yeah.
How's Bronny's season going?
I don't know.
Nobody knows.
No.
Like, you would think that if he is next in line, we'd hear a little bit more about what's going on with Bronny. And look, he suffered a pretty significant setback, but the idea that he's just guaranteed a spot in the NBA.
Well, he's 18 games this year. He's averaging 20 minutes, 5.7 points per game.
Remind me, sophomore?
He is a freshman, first year.
Okay, so we got a little bit of time there. Let's see what happens.
You can't say freshman anymore. First year, most players.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of college basketball, quickly, my goodness. They, once again, the Orange are to college basketball what the S word are to the NHL.
Oh, no. I don't want to denigrate the Orange because the Orange will actually pull through every once in a while. And yes, the S word won in Minnesota on Saturday night, but
they'll win tonight. They're in Montreal.
Not winning tonight.
They'll win tonight.
They'll not win.
Sure.
You fool.
Why not? They're not home. They'll win. They're better on the road. And the dads are there. They'll win tonight.
The dad trip.
Yeah, the dads are there. They'll win tonight.
How loaded do the dads get?
Got to get bombed.
Yeah, look, the dads are hanging out.
Just completely
what are they doing all day? Watching? They want to go to the morning skate. They're all hung over the morning skate. Yeah.
No, but Q's getting the win against North Carolina State. I mean, and
well, what's impressive about that? They're ahead by 15, and then poof, there it goes in this. Well, they fought back. They came back. So it's not a real big win winning at NC State, but now the next two are big. Notre Dame, and we're going to talk to Mike Waters on Friday, by the way, at Syracuse Post-Standard, because Jim Boeheim Day, there's a lot to talk about with the Orange. And then the game, Virginia Tech, that's the spot. If you can win those two, and then you get Louisville, please. Louisville's terrible. If you can win out here and then win one game in the tournament, that would put you, 22-11? Dude, maybe. I think they're in.
Maybe. Yeah. Chris Bell, I mean, again, it takes an effort that is almost historic, it seems like, for this team to get those kind of wins, right? You saw it against North Carolina where they shot the lights out. Bell nearly set the record for threes.
Well, and then they didn't go to him. Even Draymond Green is saying, what you went, it was 8 of 8, then you stopped going to him?
Yeah. Ended 8 of 10. I want to say 26 points on the night last night. But you see that and you get excited, and now we'll see what the next game looks like. And
well, they cannot lose at home on Boeheim Day. They just can't. Like you would figure.
Can't.
Well, they could lose it. I would think they're a little ahead of the S word. They have a.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
If you're not. And we're not talking about a swear word. It's just like we're
Be
so
careful.
dumb.
I'm ready to hit the dump button.
Yeah, we're talking about the team in Buffalo that we don't want to mention. So,
and we're over it. We're so over it that it's almost a curse that we can't talk about it. We'll get to. I'll drink to that next. We've got some takes on tap in the sports bar.
Yes. Do we have takes? Of course we do. 50 years ago today, what happened? Wasn't in sports, but it involved a sports figure. 50 years ago today. I will go over this, and then. Because I want to see the world burn. I want to see the A's stay in Oakland, but because they're not, I just love all these complications for Major League Baseball because I just want Rob Manfred just to...
You wanted to feel some pain.
Yeah, so this is the latest in this whole mess of the A's here. This report from Jeff Passan. We'll go get into this.
You want to talk about feeling old? Something happened in our sports community 25 years ago this summer, and it was a big deal. I remember it vividly.
I do too. I remember where I was.
And
not like Tom Brady when he retired. I remember. Yeah, no.
This is something that is going to be altered, and you can't really put anything on it other than greed or fear. But regardless, it is something that I believe stunts the growth of this game in our country in a fairly significant way. I'll explain. I've got a soccer take coming up next in the Sports Bar. We'll get to that and more next. Rory Fitzpatrick, future Amerks Hall of Famer, joining us at 4:25 as well. Your phone calls welcome always at 866-4FAN. 585-866-4326.
W239BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester, sports update.
Hockey night tonight in Rochester as Belleville comes in. They're here tonight and on Friday. Tonight it will be Devin Levi in goal. Amherst head coach Seth Appert on the opponent.
They're big, they're heavy, they're physical, they have a very good decor. A lot of their decor has spent significant time in the NHL or are going to be NHL players, and high draft picks. And then they got elite goaltending. So they're a little more score by committee up front with really heavy forwards and then an elite decor with elite goaltending.
Don Stevens will be calling the action 7 o'clock here on the Fan Rochester. Rory Fitzpatrick goes into the Amherst Hall of Fame coming up on Friday. We're going to talk to him later this hour here in the Sports Bar. Sabres tonight looking to turn things around there in Montreal. That game can be heard on 96.5 WCMF. Sports brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Save half off to Lasertron in Henrietta. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
I think they'll miss Gabe Davis. I think he's the kind of guy over 4 years that maybe he wasn't super consistent, but he was dependable. He had some big games in big spots.
Mike Danger.
We take the good with the bad.
Gene Battaglia.
Danger, I think the question is what's next here for the Buffalo Bills?
The Patrick Mahomes rules. You got to knock off the head of the snake.
Kill the head, the body will die. Affect the head. Affect the head. Continue. Touch and hit the head.
Amherst, Belleville. Tonight at 7.
Violence.
Yes.
Canadians and Sabres clash tonight.
A dads and mentors trip, really just refresh energy.
How can you not be proud of these guys? That in itself can be energizing.
The 5+7 CFP format approved yesterday only applies to the next 2 seasons. Then things could change again.
Syracuse, number 1 UConn was riding a 14-game winning streak. Well, now it's over. The Creighton Blue Jays got it done convincingly.
How about my dude Dan Hurley? A Creighton fan nearly hooked my guy.
And it's opening night for MLS as Messi and Inter Miami host Real Salt Lake.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
We welcome you back into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. As Gino mentioned, future Amherst Hall of Famer Rory Fitzpatrick stopping by the Sports Bar in about 20 minutes or so. We appreciate you listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app. That's AUDACY. You can also check out our stream. We're streaming video now live on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, also on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. It's time for some takes, Gino.
Yeah, so takes, and it starts off with a history lesson. I teased this earlier. 50 years ago today, what happened? Tim Horton died in a car accident on the QEW. Now, before there were hundreds of donut shops with his name, he was an all-star defenseman for Toronto and Buffalo. This is before our time, Danger, so obviously never saw him play. But when you read up on this, there are a couple lessons from his death. Lesson number 1. Wow, we really didn't take DWI all that seriously back then. And that's part of the story here that, yeah, he shouldn't have been behind the wheel. And it wasn't until 2005, 31 years later, that the autopsy was released. And it showed that he was twice the legal limit. So why did they, keep that private for so long? I don't know the laws up there. Number 2, and this is a business lesson for anybody, the donut chain that you know today. Following his death, a man named Ron Joyce offered Horton's widow $1 million for 100% ownership. She accepted. She would later sue in 1993. She would lose that lawsuit. She passed in 2000. So Tim Horton's family today gets no royalties whatsoever. So at the very least, if your name is on it, the lesson here, make sure your lawyer is getting at least a piece of it.
I didn't know that. That's crazy. So he basically got permission from the widow to use his name, image, and likeness to start a franchise of coffee and donuts.
Correct, because I think the way I understand it, there was no will. So up in Canada, everything goes over to the widow. And this, I don't know if it's a businessman smart. You want to say he's a smart businessman, or was he a vulture for knowing, hey, here's $1 million. And in the 1970s, that's a lot of money. But understanding, hey, here's a national hero. And I'm getting the naming rights for, Tim Horton was a big, Toronto Maple Leaf hockey is like LA Laker basketball.
Sure.
It's that big. And
he started a chain of coffee and donut restaurants in his name, and the rest is history. That's crazy. I didn't know that part of the story. I don't want to date myself. I wasn't old enough to remember this, but when did the legal drinking age become 21 in New York State? Was it always 21?
Oh,
because I know growing up in Minnesota, I remember it was 18 for a part of my youth.
It was weird. This was before me, and I remember talking to people where they kind of phased it in. It was like 18. So imagine like you're 18 and 19 and then 20. They kind of upped it over time. I want to say in Ontario, it's still 19.
Yes.
Actually, I know this because my daughter went up there. We went to the Jays game last summer, and then she's like, I can have a drink.
That's great.
Okay, yep, yes, you can. So
yeah, no, that's absolutely true that the legal drinking age is still there. That's a couple of things, right? Like the one is you're right about DUI. Like it's weird that we didn't take it that seriously back then, and he was twice the legal limit when that car crashed. That and the smoking thing. I remember when I first moved here, and I was working on PXY when I first moved to Rochester. They had me doing nights on PXY. And, that's why I'd run into my boy Carlos, who was always a bouncer at all the nightclubs that they had me hosting.
Same Carlos I know, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Carlos was my guy. And we'd run into all the same, we'd go out to all the different club nights throughout the course of the week with 98 PXY. And I would go home and I would boil my clothes because I just smelled like an ashtray. And then everything changed a few short years later, and you weren't allowed to smoke anymore inside of bars, restaurants, nightclubs, the whole thing. And now I can't even imagine what that life was like. Like, what was that like back then? What did we do to ourselves, not even realizing what we were doing to ourselves?
Every bar you went into, that's why it was a big deal in the 90s when Johnny's Smoke-Free Bar.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was that was on Culver.
Yeah, historic, and not open anymore. But for years they were the sponsors of the Run in the Green, right? Johnny's Run in the Green on St. Patrick's Day, a tradition. Sad to see that place go, but yeah, you're right. That was like the place that if you didn't want to get your clothes to smell like an ashtray, that's where you would go to have a couple Johnny's. Yeah. Well, you know what? We can complain about the way things are, but we can look at the way things are and think, you know what? Things do get better.
They do get better. Look at the lessons of Tim Horton he left behind.
This is something that might not get better for this sport in our country. I have a soccer take, Gino.
Whoa!
Do we remember the U.S. Open Cup? Because back in the day, and in this case, the day would be 25 years ago this summer, our Rochester Rhinos won the U.S. Open Cup. You remember it. I remember it. Our city was electric. We had a champion, and these guys were the pride of Rochester. In fact, the Rhinos then, that U.S. Open Cup championship team, the last non-MLS team to win.
I think they're the only one.
It's an old tournament.
No. I think they're the only non-MLS team. Check me out. The way you're phrasing it, since Major League Soccer has been born.
This is the yes. So they are the longest since MLS has been born. Yes, I believe that is correct. This is the longest running soccer tournament in the United States, and any team from any league can enter. If you're not familiar, and I mean, this is what we sign up for with competition, right? This is what it's all about. You want the underdog. You want the small team, the ragtag group of players that can go down and take down the big team, right? We always like to root for the underdog. With soccer's growth, more lower level teams now have been competitive against the MLS teams. In fact, Columbus, who won the MLS Cup last season, actually got bounced from the U.S. Open Cup to the champs of the USL from Pittsburgh just last year, which if you're Columbus is like maybe not a great look, but that's what's great about this competition. And it may be too late for pro soccer in our community, but at a time where the World Cup is a couple of short years from being played on our soil and the game stands to grow, except the MLS, the franchises with all the money, they're done doing favors for secondary markets. When an MLS team comes to a smaller market now, it's a draw. It's always been a draw. When your local team can get over on the big club, it can sustain a small franchise. Soccer, it seems, just can't get out of its own way when it comes to growing the game domestically. It's cowardly. It's greedy. It's a big reason why we'll only have memories of meaningful pro soccer in our town moving forward. And my sympathies go out to the mid-level markets with teams trying to make it work year in and year out just for the love of the game. MLS is pulling a handful of their teams from the U.S. Open Cup. In fact, I want to say less than half of the teams will be participating in this year's MLS.
So is this the
US
players
Open
like
Cup.
we're not doing this anymore?
It's teams.
Yeah, it's a team.
It's the
Like
owners.
why are we bowing to this tradition? Like from a business standpoint, Danger, I get it. And as far as like the big crowds, I mean, we had the Chicago Fire and the New England Revolution. Some of these teams come in to the downtown soccer stadium, it was barely like, we've had bigger crowds, so it was always on a weird schedule too, like a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, whatever you could fit this game in. But when we talk about great moments in Rochester sports history, dude, I've told this story on the air before. I was on my honeymoon. I know exactly where I was. And the executive producer on the beach, I've got to go up and watch this game. And where I am, it's 3 o'clock local time. I'm watching it. It's on ESPN, and they're playing in Columbus. Doug Miller scores that goal. I'm like, oh, my gosh, this is Rochester. We won something.
That's right.
And you could argue, okay, since that point, what have we won? Well, the Red Wings won one Governor Cup. You had the Amerks winning the Calder Cup in '96. But the fact that you slayed everybody, including the best, I don't know if we'll ever have like a championship like that in our town where this team, maybe if RIT men's hockey wins the national championship, but for the Rhinos to win the U.S. Open Cup in 25 years, and now this is the other part of it too, like, now that we don't, and yes, the Flower City Union, they're trying to make a go of it. I appreciate that. But the fact that we don't have any soccer here.
Well, we also said earlier this week that we feel like we've found this kind of balance in our fandom here in Rochester.
Yeah.
So what do we really want? Is there more of an appetite? Is there even more of an appetite that we don't know? We know that this is a soccer community. We know how big it is. We know how many kids play soccer. God knows I've invested my fair share of hours and hours and hours on a sideline as a soccer dad for a part of my kids' youth. But do we have the ability to sustain it? I don't know that we do.
Yeah, we have a nice balance right now between the Amerks, the Wings, the Nighthawks.
I need to know when the MLS became a thing, because I think you're right. Since the MLS became a thing, I don't think that there's been any other team other than the Rhinos that have won the U.S. Open Cup. I'm looking back, and the DC United squad won in 96, Dallas in 97, Chicago in 98, before the Rhinos, an A-League team from the USL, won it in 1999. And since then, it's been all MLS teams.
The A-League. That's a throwback. Sidebar, too, because kind of preparing for this, I'm like, whatever happened to those two guys, Steve Donner and Chris Economides? They're starting some USL expansion team in Dothan, Alabama. So Steve Donner, who used to be the mogul guy here in Rochester before he owed a lot of people a lot of money, trying it all again in another very, very small market. Dothan, which is right north of Panama City.
Dothan, Alabama?
Dothan, Alabama.
I want to say one of my favorite baseball movies was set in Dothan, Alabama.
Oh, that one with Virginia Madsen.
Yeah,
you told me that one, yeah.
What was it called? Long Gone? No. Oh, why can't I remember it now? It was an HBO movie. It was one of those HBO exclusive movies, but it focused on the South, minor league baseball, racism, and everything that went with that lifestyle. Long Gone, I want to say.
Okay.
Long Gone was the name of that movie. Dothan, Alabama. Yeah, that was like the big market for him to go play, because they were from Tampico and they wanted to go up to Dothan.
Where's Steve Donner today? Still trying to keep the dream alive in Dothan, Alabama.
1987, Long Gone. I'd argue one of the best baseball movies going. You can put that up there with The Natural. You can put that up there with...
I can't comment on it because I've never seen it.
Don't come at me with Field of Dreams. Long Gone is... Before anything is baseball, we are so serious.
Come on. That speech... one constant in this world. Baseball writer will come in and shame you on that.
Baseball movie for guys with daddy issues. Go ahead.
Dad, can we have a catch?
Yeah.
ESPN's Jeff Passan, sticking with baseball, went on PTI, called the Oakland A's management incompetent. This regards to the planned move to Las Vegas. Passan says He's talked with other teams. He's talked with other ownership groups and says he would not be surprised to see the whole thing fall apart, which is awesome. Yes. Still no word on when the team is going to play in 2025. Sacramento, Salt Lake City, and staying in Oakland are being looked at. But look, what I'm rooting for, I'm in favor of watching Rob Manfred's world burn here. The A's relocation mess. This is the story. Rob Manfred, enjoy this.
Yeah, I want this to be his legacy. That he just leaves in 2029 and this is still unresolved. You can't close a deal. You can't make anything happen. What is his legacy with Major League Baseball when it's all said and done? Credit where due. Last year, I felt like the game was a little bit easier to digest. He pushed through some rules that a lot of people dug in about. And last year, the complaint wasn't jerseys. Last year, the complaint was pitch clock, right?
Yeah, but in the end, we were left with this garbage World Series. No offense there, Ranger Diamondback fans, but nobody wants to watch Texas and Arizona.
I thought it was an entertaining World Series.
It was garbage.
It was an entertaining World Series.
It was against a 500 team in the National League who got hot at the right time.
Just watch the game and shut up. It was fun. It was a fun series. Two teams that were fun and young and competitive. What do you want, Dodgers, Yankees every year?
Yes.
No.
Yes, or I want the best teams ascending to the World Series. Yeah. But no, this Oakland mess here, just the arrogance of thinking Vegas would be like, oh yeah, come on in here. We build casinos and high rises and everything. Yeah, Vegas is not on board.
We'll get to Rory Fitzpatrick next in the Sports Bar. He's going into the Amerks Hall of Fame on Friday. Quite the honor, and we know that he had a chance to catch up with the team earlier this week in preparation. Seth Appert joined us yesterday, said he had the chance to meet Rory for the first time yesterday. So lovely to have him on with us. Can't wait to get his thoughts on what this honor means to him and talk a little hockey with Rory Fitzpatrick. And I think we could probably get him to speak candidly and truthfully about everything that's going on around this organization here locally and above. What do you think?
Yeah, he's straight. We've never had him on the show here, so shame on us. So good time to catch up with him.
Absolutely. Roy Fitzpatrick joining us next this hour of the Sports Bar, brought to you by the Farmer's Dog. Fresh, human-grade dog food delivered right to your door.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. Sports Update.
It's hockey night tonight in Rochester. The Amerks hosting Belleville. It's the first of two against the Sens this week. It's going to be Devin Levi in goal tonight. Levi coming off that 52-save performance up in Toronto. Head coach Seth Appert on the status of Yuri Kulik.
Kulik is fine. He'll likely play this weekend. He's 19 years old. We're going to be extra cautious bringing a player back from an injury. That's as big of a prospect as he is at the age he's at, right? So, but he's fine. He feels great, and I think he probably feels like he can play, but like I said, likely for the weekend.
Appert joining us every Tuesday here in the Sports Bar. Rory Fitzpatrick going into the Amerks Hall of Fame coming up Friday. We're going to talk to Rory next year in the Sports Bar. Sabres looking to turn things around tonight. They are in Montreal. That game can be heard on 96.5 WCMF. G. Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You know, we just joke in the Sports Bar. We talk about people that we claim we're so provincial in Rochester. We look at people and we claim them as our own, even though they maybe sometimes go off to other cities. But, you know, Abby Wambach is ours. How Rory McIlroy, even though he's not from here, he's ours because he married somebody that is from here, that is ours.
It came back here after playing in the National Hockey League.
Undisputably, Rochester, going into the Amerks Hall of Fame Friday evening. We welcome in Rory Fitzpatrick, the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Rory, congratulations on the long overdue honor. Welcome in. How's it feel?
It feels really great. It was a surprise phone call. I wasn't expecting it, but this means a lot to me and, to also to my family. So we're obviously all from here. We grew up Amerks fans, so this is a huge honor for me and my family.
Yeah, how many friends and family will you have out Friday night, Rory?
Over 100.
Wow.
So it's a holiday week, so some people are out of town, but a lot of people still showing up, and like I said, a lot of people are excited, and a lot of people have helped me, get to where I am today, and I'm glad they can make it.
Rory, what was it that kept you in Rochester all these years and eventually got you into public service? What about Rochester, other than it being your home, kept you here?
So I had the opportunity to play many different places, and there, to be honest, there wasn't too many more that I thought were a better place to live than Rochester, and to be able to raise my family close to other family members was a key for me. But I think Rochester is a great city. It's a great city to raise your family in, and I was excited to be able to finish my career here in Rochester, but. Overall, we did have the opportunity to live other places, and to us, there wasn't a place worth moving away from our families.
Roy, I think of all the kids that might be playing at the Iceplex or Lakeshore Ice, and with the dream someday of, hey, maybe I can make this a career, and that's how. When did it go off in the bulb in your head that, hey, maybe I could take this path here?
When I was 15, I was playing junior B hockey and started to get scouted by some major junior teams and started to, start to have people talk to me. And at that point, I thought, maybe this is something I can do, and started to look into it more. But, at that time in Rochester, it just wasn't something that kids did. So, up until that point, it was never really, obviously every kid dreams of playing professional sports, but up until I was about 15 or 16, that's when I thought, man, maybe I could make this a possibility.
Rory, we know that the youth hockey scene has changed quite a bit from when you were playing, and you mentioned you were probably like a rarity back then, but now you feel like you hear about kids all the time at 15, 16, 17 years old, bypassing some time at high school to kind of try to advance and further their career. You actually did it. What does it take? What kind of discipline at a young age do you have to have in order to make it to that next level and then the level after that?
I think it's sacrifices, right? Everybody wants to do it, but to what level do you want to do it at? And you have to give up a lot. I moved away when I was 17 I didn't have the opportunity to do what some of the other kids in high school were doing here in Rochester. And for some kids at that age, 17, 18, it becomes, what's really important. And at that point, you really have to sacrifice and give up a lot to focus on it. And like I said, you're doing things that on a Friday night that normal 17 and 18-year-old kids aren't doing.
Rory Fitzpatrick going in to the Amerks Hall of Fame coming up Friday night. He's our guest here in the Sports Bar. And to look at your career, Rory, and how you grinded there, and some of these team names I've forgotten about, the Fredericton Canadians, the Worcester Ice Cats, and you saw time up in Montreal and St. Louis, certainly. But I would have to think that was a pretty easy decision, or was it an easy decision that when you became a free agent to come back to the Buffalo organization and join them for the first time?
Yeah, it was easy. Obviously, my career started, on a very high note. Made Montreal Canadiens my first year. Was traded to St. Louis, and that's when some of those up and downs started to occur. So, the first time I signed in Rochester, it was basically to start my life here. We had 2 kids at the time, and we were ready to establish ourselves here in Rochester at that time and play as long as we could here with the Amerks. And if call-ups happened in Buffalo, that would be great. But, from there I was, lucky enough to become a regular in the NHL and, have a chance to regain that dream of playing in the NHL.
Rory, talk a little bit about the adjustment after your playing days are done, because we've talked to former players, and for a lot of them, it's a struggle to break away from the routine of being on a team and being at the rink every day, and bluntly, just finding a new purpose in life. How are you able to navigate through that? You mentioned you have a couple kids. I have to believe that probably had something to do with your ability to adjust post-playing career. Yeah, so my family played a big role in that. With 4 kids, it's you got to do what you can do to survive. I was lucky. Found a job at the Iceplex, first one, so I was able to stay involved in the sport and be close to it without actually being a professional hockey player or a coach. So for me, the transfer was pretty easy from that standpoint. But convincing people you're more than a hockey player was a little bit more challenging than I thought. So. There's definitely been some up and downs to it, but my kids played a major role in me being able to adjust after the career.
Are there similarities for folks who don't know or maybe had forgotten? You were the around the Coit Town supervisor for 2 years in 2002 and 22 and 23. Tell us a little bit about how how that term was and the lessons that maybe hockey taught you and you successfully winning that first election, Rory.
Yeah, so it's again, this community means a lot to me. I'm not a politician. I'm not a political person. My desire to get into it was to help the community, to be a part of the community. So that with that, obviously there's a lot of work that goes into it, teamwork, discipline, sacrifice, commitment, all those things are transferable, from professional sport, work ethic. There's so many things that being a professional hockey player, that can translate into careers afterwards. And, politics is one of those, and being in the public eye and facing criticism on a daily basis is very similar to what you face as a professional athlete. So, I used a lot of what I've learned in the sport as a supervisor.
He is Rory Fitzpatrick going into the Rochester Americans Hall of Fame Friday night as the Amerks take on Belleville. We'll have that action for you here on the Fan Rochester. And Rory, you're going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'm sure it's a moment for you to be introspective and look back, not just on your career, but on your adult life. What are you most proud of? What's your biggest accomplishment as you enter the Hall of Fame here on Friday night?
That's a great question. Obviously, it'll be an emotional night. Like I said, there's been a lot of sacrifices, not only by me, but people close to me to be able to be a professional athlete. My kids made tremendous sacrifices. My wife made tremendous sacrifices. My family, mom and dad and brothers. So it'll be an emotional night. And I think from an athlete's perspective, I think just playing in the NHL is a huge accomplishment. But as just a person, I think my 4 kids are by far my biggest accomplishment, and their success and their how well they're doing means the world to me, and speaks volumes of me and my wife and what we've done over the years.
Roy, we talked to Seth Appert yesterday, and he mentioned yesterday actually you got to meet the head coach of the Amherst, and I, speaking on behalf of a lot of people, I think we're all kind of excited to see this franchise, people coming back out to games, and some successful playoff runs where you got in deep, maybe not the cup, but it's good to have big crowds out there. I guess my question is for the parent team, where that hasn't carried over. What are your observations right now here on the Buffalo Sabres, Roy?
Yes, but it's been tough. It's been tough as a former Sabre to watch. And, I think coming into this season, there was a lot of optimism. There was a lot of excitement. I know I was excited, to see them make that push and, get back into the playoffs. So, it's been disappointing. And, I'm not close enough to it to, fully comment on it. But, obviously, I think some upgrades last summer would have been helpful, and counting on letting maybe some of the prospects develop a little bit longer, not rushing certain prospects in, and getting some veterans to Buffalo last summer would have been very helpful for that team, taking off some of the pressure of the players that had really good years last year and let them continue to grow without that additional pressure.
Talk about that for a second, because we know how young this team is, and we see how the NHL is a man's game. How challenging is it for some of the young guys there in Buffalo, night in and night out in the NHL grind, to remain competitive without getting their feeling beat down constantly?
It's very difficult, and Buffalo is it's a hard town to play in. When things are going well, you have the support, but people spend a lot of money and expect certain results. So, when you're not playing well, they let you know it. And as a young player, that can really weigh on you. And, if you don't have a large veteran presence around you to take some of that heat and take some of that pressure off these young kids that are expected to produce, I think you're seeing the results of that now.
So we're not going to get any tears tomorrow night, right, Rory? Or you're going to get up there, everything's going to be cool, right?
Yeah, I expect some tears. So I was, I spend most of my time unemotional, but I think the gravity of this is going to be emotional for me.
What is it like watching your son on the McQuaid ice, Rory?
Watching my kids has been fantastic. So they've all had really fun youth careers. 2 of them have had the opportunity to play club hockey, and one's playing Division III. So watching them is enjoyable. It's I love it. I try not to miss any games that they're playing in.
Well, Roy, we will make our best effort, and I know everybody listening will make their best effort to come out and celebrate your induction into the Rochester Americans Hall of Fame. That's coming up on Friday night at Blue Cross Arena. If anything, just to see you shed a tear, man. I mean, you're a pretty steely dude. I don't know. This is gonna be something that I don't think any of us are used to, but we're looking forward to it, and it's an honor that is well deserved. Thanks for making Rochester home all these years, and for contributing all that you have to our community. We're looking forward to Friday night, bud.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Here he is, Roy Fitzpatrick, going into the Rochester Americans Hall of Fame, coming up on Friday night. I love his answer to the question, what is your greatest accomplishment? It's an easy answer.
Yeah.
You don't have to, if you're Rory Fitzpatrick and you have opportunities as a professional athlete to live here, live there, do this, do that, you say, I'm staying in Rochester because this is where the family is. And my greatest accomplishment are my kids. That is the correct answer. Love that. Love that guy.
He was traded for Pierre Turgeon. Isn't that funny to think? Because you think of Pierre Turgeon, Buffalo, and then Pierre Turgeon later on ends up in Montreal, and he's part of the trade that he's packaged with Pierre Turgeon going to St. Louis.
Yeah, yeah. What a wild ride, And it leads him back to Rochester when it's all said and done. He's got a little bit of public service there on his resume to look back on. He said it on our airwaves. I'm not a politician. You have to be, I think, a certain kind of breed to pursue that, and admitting, being forthright, and saying, like, I just want to make our community better. I love that. I love the answers. Love the guy. That's Roy Fitzpatrick. That's who's going to the Hall of Fame on Friday.
Anybody in public service, I don't know how you do it.
No
way. Whatever side you're on, because you're going to have people, kind of the criticism.
Well, that's what he said.
It's
if you're a professional athlete, you're used to hearing criticisms every day. If you're in public service, you're going to hear criticisms most likely every day. You're not going to make everybody happy all the time. So, yeah, he was suited for that role for those couple of years there. Man, that's an exciting honor. And what are they getting? They must be getting an entire section if he's got about 100 people showing up.
That's like about 10 rows.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good turnout for the Fitzpatricks there with Belleville coming to town on Friday night. That's going to be a party.
Wow, you figure, and again, he brought this up. Schools are off. So tonight shouldn't feel like your typical Wednesday night. Like, I would expect 5,000 easy tonight with the schools being off.
Be great. And these are a couple of games against an opponent that's trying to chase him down, so you got to get them. Amherst tonight on the Fan Rochester. We'll have puck drop for you from Blue Cross Arena just after 7 o'clock. Rory Fitzpatrick going in Friday night against Belleville, and we'll have that action for you here on the Fan Rochester as well. All right, we have happy hour coming up in just a few. We'll get to some headlines from around the NFL as well before we get to that. And we do have time for your phone calls if you want to pull up a stool at 866-4326. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger.
All right, happy hour right around the corner here on the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us this afternoon. On the Fan, Rochester, 866-4FAN. If you want to pull up a stool, 585-866-4326. Hey, Gino, we touched on this earlier as we get closer and closer to the Combine next week, and, of course, the draft that will come at the end of April. This is a storyline that I think is worth mentioning and something that you kind of can monitor here through the course of the draft process, the pre-draft process. And it's this notion that Caleb Williams is going to proceed without an agent. The NFLPA putting out their list of prospects and their representation. And Caleb Williams, the presumptive number 1 overall pick, going it alone. No representation.
Well, why would you not want the representation? What is an agent fee? Anywhere between 3 and 5%. And like, hey, that's a lot of money. However, you need somebody to serve as your front man or front woman and to just kind of handle the business opportunities that kind of come along. Weed out some certain things. And probably most importantly, negotiate directly with the GM. Like the whole Lamar Jackson story. Did Lamar Jackson leave money on the table by representing himself? I don't know the answer to that question, but this danger would be highly unusual. You'd have to kind of look this up. Has there ever been a number 1 overall pick that's represented themselves? And would that be viewed actually as a deterrent? Because signability and making sure that you're in camp in time and doing all those things, I mean, would you have assurances that if we took you a number 1 that we're not going to be playing games back and forth?
It's just another strike against the Bears. I don't want to play for Chicago. I'm not going to get an agent. I'm so despondent. I don't even want to play in the NFL if that's the team that's going to draft me. I just think more than anything, knowing how cutthroat it is and how much is at stake, you want somebody who can craft a story for you, a narrative for you, and dispel any false narratives for you. I mean, if you're the representation for Drake May, aren't you spending all of the next few weeks talking about not just how great your client is, but how much better he is than the guy that threw all those interceptions?
Well, look, Drake May never cried in his mother's arms following a loss. Look at this. Drake May never stormed off and didn't talk to reporters after a loss to UCLA. Like Dre, you don't think that stuff absolutely goes along.
And that is the kind of thing that happens as you get closer and closer. It's the reason why Lamar Jackson, a guy who's won the MVP twice, didn't go until the last pick of the first round when, given his track record, you could argue, yeah, he probably belonged in the top 10. I mean, think about how many picks after Josh Rosen Lamar Jackson went in the 2018 draft.
Part of it, too, if I remember correctly, was that teams wanted to bring in Lamar and they just couldn't reach him. So you can not have an agent, but are you going to be accessible? Do you have a team around you? People once upon a time looked at LeBron James and said, what are you doing with this Maverick Carter guy? That's your like high school buddy. You shouldn't be doing well. It kind of worked out for LeBron, but a lot of people at the time said, don't do that. And he went ahead and it's worked out just fine for him. But it's an interesting storyline for sure. This out of New England today, and we're going to talk a little more Patriots tomorrow and quarterbacks too, for that matter. Marcus Goldfler, a buddy from the Pats Pulpit, will be joining us. Today was Meet the Coaches Day in New England, and there was the Pill, former Bills quarterback and Bills offensive coordinator, heck, Bills color commentator.
The Pill.
Alex Van Pelt, that's his nickname, Pillsbury Doughboy. Alex Van Pelt asked if Mac Jones could start right now. What do you think Mac Jones said? Or Alex Van Pelt said, right now everything is on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it is.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really saying anything at this point. But if you remember last year, Mac Jones, the Patriots making him inactive, which is kind of a hostile move, right? Like if you're making a quarterback inactive for Week 17.
Yeah, he's done, right? And you got to wonder what's next for him, what's next for Zach Wilson. There's a handful of guys that maybe will just be career backups, and when they have an opportunity, they'll try to make the most of it, but we kind of know how that goes. You're just not the dude. Like, you have to be the dude. You have to have that command. And Jones had it in Alabama, just did not get it with New England. And the same, I think, could be said for Zach Wilson. Which should make you feel pretty good, by the way, if you're in the AFC East, if you're a Bills fan and you look at the rest of the division. We've got the Tua storyline here to wonder whether or not, they're going to sign him to that long-term deal, when they will sign him to that long-term deal. He's playing on going into his fifth year, on the fifth-year option, so he's got some guaranteed money coming his way. But what kind of extension is he going to get if he gets one from Miami? And meanwhile, the Bills, minimum, you have your guy. And when you talk about a guy needing to be the dude, that dude is Josh Allen. And, man, it was comforting. As I kind of did a scan of the sports radio landscape earlier today, I just wanted to see, what are people talking about in Chicago? What are people talking about in Philadelphia? What are they talking? And in Philadelphia, our old buddy Joe Giglio, who used to stop by every week in the sports bar, was kind of owning that, maybe we overrated Hurts last year on his run to the Super Bowl. We had him as a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. He may go down as the greatest Eagles quarterback of all time when it's all said and done, but after his season last year, maybe we overrated him a little bit. Hey, look, you can't really say that about Josh. You could say he threw a lot of interceptions last year, and that's something you'd want to clean up, but you have your guy, and this time of year is always one where, if you have your guy, you can sit back and kind of reflect on how good it is to know you have your guy. So Schofield tomorrow, and the Pats with the number 3 overall pick, a very interesting decision to make there.
I think the story out of Philadelphia today is this. So this was FS1's Craig Carton, who had this story wait a second, what is this? Said that there was a salacious reason why the Philadelphia Eagles imploded in 2023, but he couldn't disclose it. Okay, well, that gets clicks. That gets people talking. What are you talking about? Adam Schefter then goes on the air in Philadelphia, says, there's no truth to this. Now comes this story. Do you remember Dom DeSandro?
Oh, the security guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
he was standing up for his guy because he's Italian. Yeah.
That was the San Francisco game, and you could point to maybe that game as when, hey, this is a team that got punched in the mouth, and Dom. After that game, the result was Big Dom could not be on the sidelines anymore when he's right next to Nick Sirianni. This is a credible report. It's from Derek Gunn, who covers the Eagles. He says, by DeSandro getting suspended, DeSandro's main responsibility, Danger, was actually controlling the emotions of Nick Sirianni on the sideline. Because in this report, in his absence, Nick gets into numerous arguments with players and coaches during games. Sirianni also admitting that he was too tense in some of these losses down the road.
What?
That Nick Sirianni flies off the handle, and it would be Big Dom on the sideline.
Big Dom is a babysitter?
Essentially.
That's what I'm hearing. Big Dom wasn't the head of security. He was a babysitter.
Which I never understood. Why would you need a security guy with the IFB standing right next to the head coach?
And without him there, Sirianni was unhinged. He could just go off on whoever he wanted to go off whenever he wanted to go off.
Yes.
So Big Dom is the security blanket. He's the babysitter. He's the guy that's there to say, no. Don't fly off the handle on your defense. Sean Desai is doing everything he can. Matt Patricia is doing everything he can. Don't yell at the defense.
So here's what you do. If he's that valuable, then give him a new title. Quality offensive control. How many BS titles are there on an NFL team?
Yeah, except this guy doesn't appear to have any sort of football background. He's a security guy.
Because he's Italian.
Well, that's it. That was the missing ingredient. You just needed a large Italian guy on the sideline, and you start winning games again. Makes sense. That's it. That's all it was. Just a babysitter. Okay. Hey, look, I'm sure you can go on Angie and find a lot of babysitters that could do that job for you. Maybe even some of them are Italian.
No, you need a babysitter like a Big Dom there. Who's getting in the face of Big Dom? Big Dom's not taking anything from Dre Greenlaw. Remember that? What, I'm watching this. What am I watching here?
That was insane. That's interesting. Yeah, Philadelphia's got a lot of pieces to pick up. But going into next year with Vic Fangio on the defensive side of the ball?
The thing is, I think that's misguided by everybody saying in Philadelphia, I don't know if Hurts is a guy. No, Hurts got you to the Super Bowl. It's the coach. It's Nick Sirianni.
Yeah.
Nick Sirianni is fake it till you make it guy. And yeah, in a weakened NFC, but by the way, that if the Niners had a quarterback, you're probably losing that game. Sorry, Eagle fan. You could do much better as a head coach. And Mike Danger, with Bill Belichick on the market, why wouldn't you blow out Nick Sirianni and bring in Bill Belichick? And you are always welcome, Mike Danger, to prepay your bet.
The box wine bet won't be paid off until we know who's coaching in the NFL in 2025. We got a little time. So you can campaign all you want. Nothing's going to change between now and this time next year. I mean, by this time next year, we will know. Is he back or is he not? And then I will like a lush Pinot Noir. It's the dark purple box, I believe. Dark purple.
I would just go with the cab.
You want a cab, not a...
Well, I'm thinking because of the seasonality, because you're not going to prepay this. If it were the summertime, I'd say, a nice rosé, or maybe a nice Riesling for the executive producer.
Oh, is she involved in this bet? Because from what I understand, she doesn't want you betting with me. It never ends well for you.
Well, that's correct, but these things are both correct because when I go home, I have to share.
Oh, see, I don't have that problem.
Your wife does not.
No,
No.
I do not have that problem. So, yeah, if I win the bet, I get to enjoy all the spoils.
So I go home and like, honey, how was your day? Would you like a... Yes. Okay. There you go.
Happy hour next. You know what? Let's explore a little bit about these dominoes here. We mentioned Caleb Williams, who is the presumptive number 1 overall pick, but there's a lot of quarterback dominoes that could fall before we even get to the draft in April, and it starts with Justin Fields in Chicago, and you certainly could believe, it's safe to assume, that Russell Wilson has played his last football in Denver. What about Kirk Cousins? What are the Steelers doing? There's a handful of really interesting and compelling storylines here with these quarterbacks worth following here as the league year gets close. And you know what? The timing of all of this, by the way, yesterday, Gabe Davis with the video, I know that they're not supposed to tamper, but you just know.
Please.
You just know
yes.
that conversations are are happening right now. They're being held. And next week at the Combine is just a formality. It's just securing down your assets.
Well, here, let's compare baseball to football. Baseball. Well, where's Blake Snell signed? I don't know. Spring training is going on. Yes, it is. Where's Cody Bellinger? I don't know. March 16th, that day, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, we will know. Happy hour next. Your call's welcome as well. 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
It's hockey night tonight in the Flower City. Belleville is the opponent, since also here coming up on Friday. It'll be Devin Levi in goal tonight, coming off that 52-save performance in the win over Toronto. Head coach Seth Appert on the opponents.
They're big, they're heavy, they're physical, they have a very good decor. A lot of their decor has spent significant time in the NHL or are going to be NHL players, and high draft picks. And then they got elite goaltending. So they're a little more score by committee up front with really heavy forwards, and then an elite decor with elite goaltending.
Don Stevens will have the call beginning at 7 o'clock tonight here on the Fan Rochester. Sabres also in action tonight. They're coming off the loss to Anaheim. Buffalo in Montreal tonight. That game can be heard on 96.5 WCMF. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Today, save half off to Lasertron in Henrietta. Gene Battaglia on the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
I think they'll miss Gabe Davis. I think he's the kind of guy over 4 years that maybe he wasn't super consistent, but he was dependable. He had some big games in big spots.
Mike Danger.
We take the good with the bad.
Gene Battaglia.
Danger, I think the question is, what's next here for the Buffalo Bills?
The Patrick Mahomes rules. You got to knock off the head of the snake.
Kill the head, the body will die. Affect the head. Affect the head. Continue. Touch and hit the head.
Amerks Belleville. Tonight at 7.
Violence.
Yes.
Canadians and Sabres clash tonight.
A dads and mentors trip, really just refresh energy.
How can you not be proud of these guys? That in itself can be energizing.
The 5+7 CFP format approved yesterday only applies to the next 2 seasons. Then things could change again.
Syracuse, number 1 UConn was riding a 14-game winning streak. Well, now it's over. The Creighton Blue Jays got it done convincingly.
How about my dude Dan Hurley? A Creighton fan nearly hooked my guy.
And it's opening night for MLS as Messi and Inter Miami host Real Salt Lake.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester.
Hey, welcome to Happy Hour in the Sports Bar. We appreciate you stopping by on your ride home and making us part of your afternoon commute, your afternoon routine. What an honor it is, a privilege to be able to talk sports here in the Flower City with you every afternoon from 3 until 6 at 95.7 FM and AM 950. I know Gino doesn't take it for granted. I feel the exact same way. We also appreciate you listening in the free-to-download Odyssey app. Also, our stream at The Fan Rochester on YouTube. Also on Twitch. Like and subscribe while you are there. Feeling very Rochester today with Rory Fitzpatrick stopping by the Sports Bar last hour.
Yeah, going into the Hall of Fame. Somebody that was born here, went out to junior, made his way back to the Sabre organization. At the very end, rejoined the Amerks for his last couple of years. So good on the Amerks putting him into the Hall of Fame. And 100 people will be in attendance coming up Friday night. Had a fun conversation also today with PJ Glasser. Your host has sent it in. All right, starting to look at college basketball, some of the trends. PJ absolutely nailing the idea that, yesterday that you would have UConn going down to Creighton. Mm-hmm. His play tonight actually comes from the NBA. It's actually tomorrow, I should say, that to take against the Nets, take the Nets against the Raptors.
Yeah, speaking of college basketball, the Orange get the win last night against North Carolina State. It was Chris Bell on fire, 8 of 10 from 3, 26 points. And Qs get a much-needed road win. But, looking at the big picture here, I mean, you're still talking about a team that's 8th right now in the ACC.
The ACC should have 8 teams.
Yes. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this, Gino, because, well, you get by North Carolina State, but you did drop a very winnable game at Georgia Tech over the weekend.
That hurts.
And now you've got Jim Boeheim Day at the Dome coming up on Saturday against Notre Dame.
I feel comfortable, and I don't do as good an impression as that Mike Danger on Jim Boeheim.
It's nice to be out of the studio and back on the court, and I really think that if I was out here, and maybe we would be a 7th place team in the ACC. I can tell you that much, and. What do you know about basketball over there, Gino? I see you. I see you trying. I see you getting ready to ask me a question.
I'm not on Mike and Mike. What am I doing here? I'm not on PTI.
Who are you guys? I don't talk to anybody unless they're in the national media. I don't speak to the peasantry in Rochester. That'll be Saturday, Notre Dame. So the way the schedule lays out for him here, I mean, there's a winnable games down the stretch. Clemson being in a challenge here coming up. What is that? A couple weeks?
Yeah.
So what's the path? I mean, assume that they don't win out. Maybe if they drop another game before the ACC tournament. I guess if you do win out, win a game in the ACC tournament, maybe you're telling me there's a chance.
Well, if they win out, but I think that Virginia Tech game is actually going to be tough. So there's 4 games left. Notre Dame at home, win. Hosting Virginia Tech, I'll give them a win, Danger. What the heck? And then at Louisville, so watch it come down to that Clemson game. Watch Joe Girard say, you know what?
Oh, God.
No. Ha, ha, ha. Rip my heart out.
Can't have it. Well, all right, so there you go. The Orange getting the win last night.
Anything to not talk about the S's?
No. Well, tonight we will spare you. We will give you Amherst hockey tonight on the Fan Rochester. And the S word on CMF, but listen anyways. We were talking earlier about the luxury of having our guy, right? We can look around the NFL landscape, and this is the time of the offseason where every team that doesn't have a Josh Allen is scrambling to figure out who their guy is going to be. It's the most important position in sports. And some teams just can't get it right. Hey, look, I'm wearing the Bears cap today. The team that's top of my mind that can't get it right, it's the Bears. So,
but on the other hand, the Bears had the foresight of saying, you know what, Carolina, we don't like any of these quarterbacks. Give us that should be Carolina's pick at number 1 overall.
Mm-hmm.
So I give the Bears credit. And what's kind of come into focus here in the last 7 days, it's this. With your Russell Wilsons, with your Kirk Cousins, with everybody ready to pounce on free agency, where I thought this would be, let's hold on to Fields and maybe we keep Fields, maybe we trade the number 1 overall pick. It feels like to me, Danger, this has to happen before free agency, that if you're going to move on from Fields, but the question is, like, who might that team be? Because I can't imagine that's our guy, Justin Fields. They didn't know what they were doing in Chicago there, and we're gonna give up our number 8 overall pick of Atlanta. I think that's wishful thinking there. I don't know if there's going to be this big market for Justin Fields right now, not with other options out there where you don't have to pay the freight of a first-round pick.
Right. If you're New England, and we'll talk to Mark Schofield from the SCO Show, Pat's Pulpit, 3:25 tomorrow afternoon. We'll learn more about what the Pats might do with that 3rd overall pick. And Schofield's also a quarterback whisperer, so he'll be able to tell us kind of a little bit what he's seeing, not just out of Fields' game and what that might mean for his future in Chicago or elsewhere, but some of these prospects that are coming out. Certainly Drake May, Caleb Williams, who we learned today will go into the NFL draft process without an agent. Yeah, I mean, yesterday we spent a little bit of time. I just kind of let logic be my guide here, for better or worse. I'm not a capologist. I can't tell you the ins and outs of Denver's dead cap situation if they move on from Russell Wilson, but it seems like he's played his last down in Denver. I think we have kind of an agreement there, and dead cap be damned, he's probably no longer going to be a Denver Bronco. So where does he play next year? We've heard that the Steelers are going to bring in competition for Kenny Pickett.
As they should, but define that. Are we talking about journeyman, or are we going to draft somebody?
Veteran competition. That's a broad enough term.
Yeah, I mean, are we talking about Cousins or like a Gardner Minshew?
No, I already know. You already know who's going to Pittsburgh because he made sweet music in Tennessee with Arthur Smith when he was his offensive coordinator. It'll be Ryan Tannehill.
Ugh.
Ryan Tannehill will compete for a starting job with Kenny Pickett. He won't win. He'll back up Kenny Pickett, and he'll act as a mentor with Arthur Smith in that offense, getting Kenny Pickett up to speed. The Steelers will not admit that they may have made a mistake in selecting Pickett in the first round, but they'll stick with him stubbornly, as the Steelers do. I mean, that feels kind of clear-cut to me. That feels so Steeler-like. that it just makes too much sense for it to not happen. But what do you do if you're Kirk Cousins in the report out of Minnesota that says, guaranteed? No, not really something we're interested in doing for Kirk Cousins after one playoff win.
Yeah, I think Minnesota would be wise to kind of move on. I think Viking fans are ready for a change there. I think the surprise was, wait a second, like Baker Mayfield, like the Bucs are going to let Mayfield kind of go out there and test the market. Like Mayfield in Pittsburgh. Like if you ask a Steeler fan, Ryan Tannehill doesn't excite you. But
no.
But Baker Mayfield? Baker Mayfield, who won a playoff game for the Bucs, and the last time the Browns won a playoff game for the Browns. Yeah. So some quarter, like to me, he does not get enough credit, and I'd like to know why.
If he's not in Tampa, I want him in Minnesota. If I'm a Viking fan, I would take that. He's got an attitude, a leadership kind of like. There's a funness to Baker Mayfield that I think Viking fans would sign up for.
Right, and this isn't the first time this happened. You have to go back to the Browns being in on Deshaun Watson. Mayfield, like he was injured for much of that season, but still he got this team to a Kansas City playoff loss where it was like, what the hell? And maybe because he didn't stay down like most quarterbacks would and just keep their mouth shut and wait for the next opportunity, he was outspoken at that point. I'm trying to wonder why is Baker Mayfield kind of looked at the way he is? Because what happened in Carolina, can't fault him for that. That was a disastrous situation.
Well, I think size might be part of it. He just doesn't have the kind of size that you want out of your franchise guy. That might be.
I think it's a comparative thing because you look at that draft class. Oh my gosh, look at Josh Allen, look at Lamar Jackson, and look at the guy that won number 1 overall.
Right, and the guy that we all thought that the Bills should take. Is he even in the league anymore? Is Rosen even in the league anymore?
No, there's some social media post somewhere where I'm on a street corner in downtown Rochester saying draft Josh Rosen. I'm like, oh my God. We know nothing.
We'll get that to freezing takes exposed. The idea of Mayfield out, like if Tampa doesn't sign Mayfield, Mayfield ends up somewhere else. Minnesota makes a lot of sense to me. What does Denver do? I mean, they're going to be saddled with all of this dead cap money if they move on from Russell Wilson eventually.
Look, for all these teams, I know it's kind of like, I'm not feeling it, nor should you be excited, but I'm going to ask you the question in reverse here. Meaning, we always used to point to hey, look at how the Ravens won with Trent Dilfer. All right, Trent Dilfer, not a really good quarterback, and that was a great defense. There's no team that has a defense like the Ravens, but there's a more recent example, and I'm not talking about Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning's a Hall of Famer. None of these, maybe Russell Wilson's a Hall of Famer. My question is, my analogy here is actually what the Rams did, because you had a quarterback up in Detroit that was putting up stats, but they were not winning. No playoff wins, no home playoff games, nothing for Matthew Stafford. But you had something cooking in L.A., meaning young talent on offense, talent on defense with Aaron Donald, and an ownership and a GM that said, you know what, go get whatever you want. We're winning right now. And they go trade for a Von Miller, and they do this. Oh, and you had a bright, young offensive mind in Sean McVay. And then you just bring in, I don't want to call Stafford average because he's good, but we didn't view him that way. So is there a situation right now in the NFL where you have components and you pick up the veteran quarterback and then voila, here we go. I look at Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I look at Pittsburgh and say,
that's fair.
They weren't that far off. If they find an upgraded quarterback, can they take that division? I don't see why not. And if you win the division, okay, now you're in the AFC party. I look at Atlanta just for that young offensive talent. I'm not so sure on their coaching staff. Their offensive coordinator, a guy named Zach Robinson, he's coming from the Rams tree.
Yeah.
So that's a big unknown. But Raheem Morris, I mean, is there a situation a quarterback?
It was a good defense last year. Atlanta's good defense will be better with Morris as their head coach.
Yeah, so could that be an example where if a Russell Wilson lands in Atlanta, all of a sudden, hey, he's back, we're winning games, this is fun?
Yeah, it's possible. I think it's also possible that if Russell Wilson is released or when he is released, he could just say, you know what, I'm done with this. Or maybe Tampa is where he goes follow the footsteps of Tom Brady, right? Who once upon a time said, "You know what? This is where I'm gonna finish my playing career. Rather finish here than snowy Denver or snowy New England." It's going to be so fascinating. But I planted my flag yesterday. I love the idea of Fields in Atlanta. I think that would be a win for everybody. I think Kirk Cousins in Denver makes a lot of sense if you're Kirk Cousins, you're able to say, you know what, I understand your situation. It's not my problem, but this might be my last opportunity in the NFL, so I'll take whatever. And if it's not Cousins, then expect it to be a Jarrett Stidham or a value guy, a Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
You know, Sean Payton loves himself some Sean Payton, and what a story it would be if he's the guy that got to the playoffs with a Jarrett Stidham or a Gardner Minshew. He did it with Drew Brees. It was a cast-off when he came to New Orleans. He'd do it again in Denver. Same storyline. Where does Baker end up? I like Minnesota. Where does Russ end up? I don't know. Tampa is going to need a quarterback if they don't sign Mayfield. If they don't sign Mayfield. We don't have any indication that Mayfield isn't going to sign. He's a free agent. Are they going to tag him? Doesn't sound like it.
No, you can tag anybody from now up until that date in March, so you're available to do that. And I view the tag as a hostile move. So at any point we could get the news. Oh, hey, Baker Mayfield signed for this, probably like a 3-4 year deal.
The window is open for teams to tag players now.
Correct, and you can still re-sign your own players. If the Bills wanted to say, "Hey, Gabe Davis, we're really over the cap, but here you go," they're not going to do that. But I think what you're looking at is, don't laugh, Danger, when I tell you this. Like for Baker Mayfield or for Kirk Cousins, you look at like Daniel Jones and you say, "I want that."
Of course.
You're looking at 4 years and like, oh.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world.
That's why I think a lot of teams here, unless you can envision that scenario of this quarterback coming in, we can win games, we can make a run. Russell Wilson in Atlanta, or I don't know if Kirk Cousins falls into that category. Maybe you get Baker. The Bears at 1, draft a new quarterback. The Commanders at 2, draft a new quarterback. The Patriots at 3, draft a new quarterback. If you're one of those teams like 7, 8, the Vikings at 11, the Broncos at 12, I don't know what's going to be left over here in a quarterback class that it's good, but this is not great. This is not 5 quarterbacks in the top 12.
New England at 3 is so fascinating to me because there you have a decision. You could get what would appear to be a can't-miss wide receiver prospect. When was the last time you had that in New England? However, I think a lot of football people would say you build from the inside out, and you don't really need that luxury toy when you don't have somebody to throw the football to them.
What New England should do, if Marvin Harrison is on the board, Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State, you still don't have a quarterback. So what is the point? You're wasting time on that. You can always find another quarterback or a wide receiver. You can't find the quarterback. So if there's not a quarterback that New England likes at 3, that's the time to get out and move down. That's what I would do if I'm the Patriots. If you don't like a quarterback there, now would a team trade up to number 3? I know there's a lot of Bills fans that would say, yes, let's go up and get Marvin Harrison. You know what the freight would be?
Yeah, at what expense?
That would be 2 first-round picks to go up and get a Marvin Harrison. And New England's not going to do Buffalo any favors.
Are you and I on the same page where with the Bills, they have 10 picks? I don't want to see them lose any of those picks. I want 10. I want 10 guys.
No. For the at the very least, Danger, picks in the 6th and 7th round, those should be your special team aces. That's where you need to replenish everything. I'd even draft take a 7th round flyer and a kicker, because guess what? Tyler Bass, not so good toward the end of last season. Sorry, I said that out loud. No, but Brandon Beane, only 1 draft has he ever stayed put, and that was the Ed Oliver draft. Every other one he's moved up in the first round.
Yeah, and Ed Oliver was top 10, right?
Yeah, they were, 10 that year? 8, somewhere.
Well, again, if you're a Bills fan, this conversation should be comforting because we don't have to go through the anxiety that these teams are going through right now and trying to figure out exactly who's going to be playing the most important position on the field. You have your guy. At worst, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And, I know people would say he's the best. I know that you would say he's top 3. I'm saying at worst, he's a top 5 quarterback. That's comforting when you enter into draft season and you see teams scrambling, just looking for answers and trying to find ways to make it work. And in that regard, I guess if being as over the cap as the Bills is your biggest problem, you're probably still doing okay and better than most teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to be, when it comes to free agency, like at the little kids table. You know what I mean? Like when you were a kid, like there's, Christmas Eve dinner and the whole family's there, but there's not enough spots and you got to go sit in the corner there. I feel like that's what this is going to be like. You're going to have a lot of movement. You're going to be losing some of your own players. Not some. You're going to be losing multiple players here for the Buffalo Bills. You're going to be like,
compensatory picks. Compensatory picks,
yeah.
Gino.
Yeah, that could be it. And then, and then waiting for those post-June 1st signings. Like Leonard Floyd was a post-June 1st guy, so that doesn't count against that formula.
We'll get to a round of shots next in the sports bar.
Yeah, as we did have the locals playing last night, we'll go over what is ahead. Russell Wilson's next team, feeding on this. Chad Johnson says he knows who it's going to be.
Yeah.
So, reliable source or not, Chad Johnson, you be the judge, but we'll tell you who he says Russell Wilson will be playing for next year.
Can I tell you, as far as personalities go, is in former NFL players, Chad Johnson's personality cracks me up. He's a character, man.
Why isn't he on a bigger platform? Like when he came in for a Bills game before, like he is funny online. He's a
big personality. I think that's probably why he's not on a bigger platform. Is somebody needs to rein him in. He's best when he's just unhinged and he can say whatever he wants without fear of the repercussion. Because if you put him on one of the big networks, he'll say something at some point that gets him in trouble.
The Yankees, we've got a Yankee update here for you. And yes, these new uniforms. I'm not piling on here, Danger. I'm just passing along some of these pictures. Apparently, from these pictures, this is actually worse than we thought. And we'll explain it.
Okay. Some not so hot uniform talk on the way with a round of shots next. Last call coming up before 6 o'clock as well. Your chance to pull up a stool at 866-4FAN 585-866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams from across the country and get the inside scoop from experts. AUDACY. Odyssey.
Looking for the ultimate summer adventure for your kids? The YMCA of Greater Rochester has you covered. Splash the afternoon away with games and fun. Soar to new heights on zip lines and climbing towers. Let creativity shine, trying something new every week. From Monroe County to the Finger Lakes, the Y has something for your family, with before and after care included every day at no additional cost. So don't wait. Sessions are filling up fast. Sign your kids up today at rochesterymca.org.
Start the season like a pro with huge savings on the John Deere equipment you need. Get financing for up to 84 months on the light compact utility tractor or up to $3,000 in cash savings on select models. Stop in your local Land Pro or build your own at landproequipment.com.
This past month brought the winter weather we're used to. Now February's here and the kids are excited. But your chance for a February break is at Vision Buick GMC. Right now, you can lease the all-new 2024 Buick Envista for just $159 a month for 24 months, just $159 a month. Call 1-888-747-0516 for details. Take your February break. Follow your heart to the new Vision Buick GMC in Penfield.
And on goal, score! Join the Rochester Nighthawks as they host Casino Night at Blue Cross Arena on Saturday, February 24th against the Las Vegas Desert Dogs. Go all in on the Hawks and visit rochesternighthawks.com/tickets.
Paid actors represent actual clients.
After my car accident.
Rochester Sports Update.
It's the first of two for the Amherst this week against Belleville tonight, and then on Friday, it will be Devin Levi in goal tonight for Rochester. He's coming off that 52-save performance in the win in Toronto on Monday. Head coach Seth Thapper giving us an update on the status of Yuri Kulik.
Kulik is fine. He'll likely play this weekend. He's 19 years old. We're going to be extra cautious bringing a player back from an injury that's as big of a prospect as he is at the age he's at, right? So, but he's fine. He feels great, and I think he probably feels like he can play, but like I said, likely for the weekend.
Thapper joining us every Tuesday here in the Sports Bar. Don Stevens will have the call tonight beginning at 7 here on The Fan. Sabres are in Montreal tonight. Buffalo coming off that loss to Anaheim. Sabres hockey tonight can be heard on 96.5 WCMF. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Bills fans, Odyssey is your home for football. Stay up to date on everything Bills, no matter where you are, with the Odyssey app and the sports leader, The Fan, Rochester.
They're a big, strong, gritty team. They got a lot of big guys on the back end, and their forward group's pretty heavy, so they like to get to the net, and so I think talk about just like getting box outs, and they play a man-on-man in the O-zone, so there's different things that we do for that type of setup that we'll try to implement.
It's Rochester American Mason Jobst in front of tonight's matchup against Belleville at Blue Cross Arena. 7 o'clock puck drop here on The Fan, Rochester. It's time for a round of shots in the sports bar.
Let's start with Syracuse basketball. They let a 15-point lead get away in the second half, but here's the plot twist, Mike Danger. The Orange get a win at NC State. Chris Bell started at 8-8 from beyond the arc. He ended up with 26. Copeland had 25. The win moving the Orange to 17-10 on the season, with Jim Boeheim Day coming up on Saturday. Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Louisville, Clemson remaining on the schedule. Now, win all those, and that'll get you to 21, then a win or two in the ACC tournament. Danger, in my opinion, that should be enough.
What would that mean?
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Okay, maybe, yeah.
Yeah!
What's the flaw in that? Beating Notre Dame, Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Right,
They've been kind of inconsistent. Should have beat Georgia Tech, couldn't beat Georgia Tech. Probably could have lost to North Carolina State, didn't lose to North Carolina State. They remind me of another team.
Oh, the dad trip tonight, though, might make it different.
Oh, the dad trip.
The dads are... they're probably getting S'd watching the S's, right?
Are we saying it wrong? Should it not be the dad trip? Should it be the fathers and mentors trip to be more?
Is that what they're calling it?
Let's hear from Don Granato.
You know, that in itself can be energizing, and it should be energizing. You know, these guys have accomplished a lot in their careers and lives, and in a very, very short time, and they're playing obviously at the highest level in the world. So you see the fathers, the mentors, the grandfathers, and you know they're very proud of that, and they should be, and I think that's good energy.
How proud are they? What kind of energy are we talking about here? Are we talking about pass out, blackout, drunk by second intermission?
Still hungover from the night before. That's kind of where we're at here, right?
Yeah.
Like
dad's trip, they're going to throw it out.
Yeah. Like, honestly. The mom's trip, a little different. Mom's trip, okay, stay away from the moms there.
Is Corey Perry on the team?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if he's on the team. Stay away.
Stay away. The S's playing up in Montreal. Maybe, by the way, we're just not mentioning that team. That's why I'm censoring.
It's the S word.
The S word.
Yeah.
Maybe that gets the S's, their players, to play a little better with the puck management tonight. Giveaway is the issue in the loss of the Ducks. Buffalo, Montreal tied for the third from the bottom from the Eastern Conference with 52 points, but somehow only 8 points out of the final playoff spot. Coverage of S's hockey tonight begins at 7 on WCMF, but listen anyways, as you would say.
Yeah. I'm a glutton for punishment, man. I gotta know. I gotta see. You know, if history serves, they go on the road.
You should take comfort because my friend Worm, big Habs fan, he's like he's done with this team.
I love that you have a friend. I mean, we talk about my neighborhood, my friends in my neighborhood, my neighbors all the time. Your friend's name is Worm.
Worm. Yeah. So there's an attorney down. So we have Big Daddy and Worm.
He's a Big Daddy and Worm. And Worm is an attorney.
Yeah.
Worm needs to represent me when I get in trouble someday. Can we make that pact?
Yeah, Worm works with the FCC, so they'll be good to hire with. Yeah,
good. We need Worm in our life.
Yeah. We mentioned this. Chad Johnson, is he a reliable source? You remember Chad Johnson, wide receiver, Ocho Cinco. Maybe. Johnson claims to know where Russell Wilson will be playing next year. Quote, a little birdie told me, and I said this many shows ago, Russell Wilson is coming on over to the Steelers.
I love that all of these former athletes have their platforms and they can all record their shows and you know, it's fun to see. Like, I love Ocho Cinco's personality. I think he's just a fun character. When he and Shannon get going back and forth, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's funny. Is he a reliable source? Is Pac-Man Jones a reliable source? How right was he over the summer when he was talking about DeAndre Hopkins?
Yeah.
He's a pawn that can be used. And if, I don't know, if you have a way of getting to Ocho Cinco and saying to him, yeah, Russell wants to go to Pittsburgh. I don't think Russell Wilson wants to go to Pittsburgh.
Oh, so this could be Russell's agent.
It could be anybody.
Yeah.
It could be anyone. A little birdie? Okay. Who's your source? A little birdie?
Well, that's the flaw in this time of year. Nobody's claiming any sources, any agent, any personnel person that you could steer the conversation whatever way. That's why here in the sports bar, it's the season of lying.
Yes.
Lies everywhere.
Yes.
And I think this is a lie danger. There's no idea.
You're coming around on my theory that the Steelers are going to bring in a veteran quarterback who's going to compete but not really win that competition.
Well, that'd be dumb. Like the Steelers, anything would look good. This is the fun trivia question. Team with the fewest touchdown passes by their quarterback last 2 years combined. Oh, it's got to be Carolina. Nope. Oh, it's got to be the Jets. They didn't have a quarterback. It's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I love it. And if you're a Steeler fan and you're listening to us talk about your team right now, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that this is an organization that is so steadfast in their ways that they're going to never admit that they made a mistake in taking Kenny Pickett with the first-round pick. He'll be your week one starter. And if you're bringing in veteran competition for the preseason, it will consist of a Ryan Tannehill type of player, if not Ryan Tannehill himself.
So what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I compare it to what the Niners did. Okay, we have this number 3 overall pick, and we used a lot of collateral to get up there, and no, this ain't it. I'm sorry, we're sticking with Brock Purdy.
No,
Trey Lance
they admitted their mistake. Yeah. Not a lot, but they're also, the Niners operate, they're a very emotionally run team. What other team fires their defensive coordinator 2 days after the Super Bowl the way that they did with Steve Wilkes? By the way, we still don't know who's going to be that defensive coordinator.
No, there's a lot of... Oh, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick.
Not happening.
No.
I don't think that's happening. I mean, look, stunning if that happens, right? That's massive news. But they operate on emotion, and the Steelers are the opposite. They are more logical. They are more patient. They will, but to their own fault, they will hold on to guys too long.
See, I don't think the Wilkes thing is emotional, but it just focus on the quarterback. We made a mistake. You're not going to hear anybody. The Steelers are like most teams. Most teams are not going to say, we made a mistake on this. Like the Buffalo Bills, let's take for example. Is anybody going to say, we made a mistake with Kyrie Irving? No. Hey, John Butler is gone, and maybe he didn't leave because of that reason, but we got a new coach, and he's healthy, and blah.
Yeah,
nobody's going to move on from him.
No, you can't. You can't admit a defeat. You can't admit a mistake. You have to fix the problem. And so if you're the Steelers... You can look at Kenny Pickett and be like, he ain't the guy. But they're not looking at him that way. They're going to look at him as, no, he has to be the guy because we're not going to admit that we're wrong.
Bad. Try again in the draft. Maybe move up.
Unless it works.
It's not working. Kenny Pickett ain't it.
If you brought in Ryan Tannehill, who knows Arthur Smith's offense, and had success.
They can be a better version of what they were this year because Ryan Tannehill can at least every so often direct a touchdown drive.
I wouldn't even want Tannehill on the field. I just want him there in Pickett's ear as a guy that can work with Pickett. Not that Tannehill has a rich, long history of working with young quarterbacks, because he certainly doesn't, but he at least knows that offense. And this is the end of the road, pal. Where else are you going to get a shot? You're a backup moving forward.
Yeah, I hope for Steeler fans' sake that you're going to have more options than that.
I think that's your best case scenario if you're a Steelers fan. That's what you have to look forward to come training camp.
Well, the Bills are in competition with everybody in that conference, so I say 2 thumbs up if that ends up in the scenario. You don't like hearing this if you're a Yankee fan. Outfielder Aaron Judge says his toe is going to need constant maintenance for the rest of his career.
Oh, Christ.
Judge missed 42 games last summer after tearing a ligament. You remember that big right toe crashing into the fence at Dodger Stadium. Yankees open spring training Saturday as they'll face the Tigers in Lakeland.
There's your case for load management in Major League Baseball. He's got this built-in excuse ready to go. I mean, at what point do you call BS on that?
Well, the toe is actually it's tricky. Like you hear about turf toe with players. I mean, maybe if you just kind of took that mentality, or maybe, hey, Aaron Judge, I know you got Giancarlo Stanton. Forget it. Like more DH for Aaron Judge, less outfield. Could be a solution.
That feels like he's setting himself up for, expect me to miss time. I'm going to miss time throughout the course of the season. A game here, a couple games here, a couple games there.
It's probably still painful. You tear your toe apart like that and just kind of assume that, it's all good. And
rehab. Come on, let's go.
Finally, yet another quote on baseball's new uniform. It says Philly shortstop Trey Turner, quote, everyone hates them. The new development in the story is this, and actually it's more photos, and then you realize, oh my gosh, Danger, the fabric is so thin, some of the fabric on these white pants is see-through.
Oh, nice.
Thankfully, I'm sure that none of these guys are going commando.
Are we expecting a rating now for Major League Baseball games? Like, how they give the rating for the TV shows?
I should not be seeing what color undergarments they're wearing, or when you tuck in the jersey, you see the pinstripe or the piping coming up.
Up to bat, Philly shortstop Trey Turner, as you can see, he is Catholic. I don't need to know your religion based on the uniform that you're wearing. That's fine. Let's hope for no rain. No playing through any sort of rain or weather or elements. Call that delay quickly so we don't have to deal with it. We don't need any of that. We don't need any of that. All right. Last call next, 866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. I challenge a Steeler fan to tell me I'm wrong. I guarantee you, if you're a Steeler fan, you're listening to what we're talking about here, and you're probably nodding your head like, yeah, I don't like it, but that's probably what they're going to do.
Call us up. Again, our number 866-4FAN, 866-4326. We got a lot of engagement here on X we got to get to, too.
All right. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. It's me, Danger, for FanDuel Sportsbook, official partner of 95.7 The Fan. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/Mike, M-I-K-E, FanDuel.com/Mike, and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM. And AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
It's last call on the sports bar at 866-4326.
Some of the things on X here we're kind of figuring out here. Vince writing in. Baker over Kirk? Why? I'm not even a Kirk guy, but Baker's peak is identical. Maybe a playoff win. So why bother with, at best, a lateral move? Just start over and find a rookie. Baker is eternally a mid option. Bucks are smart to aim higher. Vince, I think you're right, except the Bucks are not in a good spot here in the first round to draft that quarterback. They would have to kind of move up. So unless you think somebody's going to fall down to be, the future, you're kind of stuck here in the middle there.
If you're the Vikings, I think you get excited about Baker Mayfield. At minimum, he's what Kirk Cousins was when he came to Minnesota. He may even be a more affordable option than what Kirk Cousins was when he came to Minnesota. And I mentioned this stat yesterday. He's got double the playoff wins in his career than Kirk Cousins does. I don't know. I think he would be fun in Minnesota.
I think the team to watch in this draft, where we're talking about the Bears are going to make up their mind here shortly. Fields will go somewhere. Caleb Williams will be one. But what about the rest of the quarterbacks? Well, and we'll talk to Mark Schofield tomorrow about the Patriots. But let's just say for the sake of this exercise that you pencil in Marvin Harrison as either the Patriots at 3 or some other team trading up to draft Marvin Harrison at 3. What about Arizona at 4? To me, if I'm Minnesota, if there's a quarterback that I like and I can get at number 4, I'm moving up. I'm getting him. Same thing with I don't think Tennessee will move up again. What about Denver? Those teams like right at 10, 11, 12 can move up and get him.
Yeah. Yes, we have to do a little investigating here to see who has that kind of draft capital to make that move, that aggressive move into the top 5 from where they reside. Tennessee, I feel like they're going to stick with their guy. I think Levis gets a chance. Minnesota, if they can get Kirk at the right price, they stick with him. But I don't think they're going to get that. I think that Kirk Cousins wants his guaranteed money, and he might have a hard time finding that coming off of a popped Achilles.
Chris writing in, you mean to tell me that Gene is going to be milder and calmer, a Mets Misfit fan? Danger sounds to me like the makings of a box wine mafia bet. No, I'm not going to bet. I'm already going to collect on the one next year.
He can't bet anymore. His wife won't let him, Chris.
And also, Chris, I'm a man of my word. I know that will be not fun radio for me to just calmly say the Mets lost to the Braves today or the Mets lost to the Phillies, but I am going to be calmer, and I understand that baseball
step in the right direction
is 162 games.
It's a step in the right direction that you're telegraphing losses before the season has even started. You're admitting that they're a fallible team, even during the season of optimism, that they could lose, that they're not the team that they're going to be chasing.
But contraire. See, what I learned last year, Danger, from the Arizona Diamondbacks, who were, 2 games above 500?
Yeah.
Ooh. That you can be that third wild card team and do great things in the postseason.
That's right.
So that is going to be where my excitement will lie. It's not going to be in April, May, June, July, anything like that. I'm sorry.
Right. You just want to be somewhere near the dance. Yeah. You want to be lurking on the dance floor.
Yeah. So I want to just caution you where I get excited about the Mets every year. The passion's still there. I'm just going to be a more reserved man now.
When's the fantasy draft at Blondie's?
It is going to be on April the 5th. So you're out of town there.
Hey, everybody! We welcome you into Blondie's, another big fantasy baseball draft going on. And we got the VIP cordoned up for our friend from upstate. Give it up for Gino. Cinnamon, stage 3. Cinnamon, stage 3.
Blondie's is not that type of establishment.
Sure.
Danger.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Tomorrow on the show.
Mark Schofield. Love our buddy Mark Schofield, the Tucson Patriots. That number 3 overall pick is a compelling one. And we'll talk a little bit about these quarterback prospects and who could land where when we talk to our buddy Mark Schofield at 3:25. And we'll talk some Nighthawks lacrosse tomorrow. Who do we got coming by?
Yeah, Ryan Lanchberry, who, the Nighthawks back home against Vegas. They need to start getting some wins here, some dubs. So that's highlighting your sports weekend here.
JR Sport Brief next. Amherst Hockey at 7 on the Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger.